across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Afternoon all, welcome along. Drive for Monday afternoon, live across the UK. You would Talk, of course, home of free speech and common sense. Thank you to Ian Collins, off to see my wife, who said she was on the school run, blatantly a lie. I'm here for the next 3 hours, which gives them plenty of time. Thanks for tuning in, whatever you're doing this afternoon. So much to talk about. And, of course, let's be honest, let's get straight to it, because every single show is talking about it and has done all weekend on every single network. I was not here on Friday when that debacle happened in the Oval Office. Extraordinary television, an extraordinary moment. But I do, and I've thought about it, because you think, well, how do you talk about this? There are people who are very pro-Trump. There are people who are very anti-Trump. You only have to listen to this station. And I'm not picking the middle ground for any other reason. That's how I see it. I don't like a lot of, I've said it before, I don't like a lot of how Donald Trump comes across sometimes and some of the things he says. But underlined with a big B-U-T, you have to accept, surely, whoever you are and whatever your beliefs in him as a person, that in 5.5 weeks, he has galvanised this bloody country and Europe to go, do you know what? Actually, we shouldn't rely on America to defend us. We shouldn't be spending money on crazy thing whilst cutting defence for the last 20 years. We should be defending ourselves against the potential nightmare that is Russia, against what's going on. Pictures are on screen right now. Was it a stitch-up? Was it Vance that wound up Trump? Sort of not interested. The King played his part. Starmer in the last few days seeking a coalition of the willing. Again, maybe it's a contentious remark. Starmer in the last 3 days has finally looked prime ministerial, but with everything else that's going on at home and everywhere else, he needs to get his handle on that. But here's the truth. It was Boris Johnson, wasn't it, who said we should support Ukraine. We should lay out the red carpet, whilst Europe didn't really want to. Now, all of a sudden, Macron, the Germans, everybody's jumping up and down. So if you're Donald Trump, however many people you've upset, you probably sat in the Oval Office thinking, you know what? That's better for the American people. I'll tell you another thing that really annoys people who listen and watch this television network and station, or whatever you want to call it, is the foreign aid budget. Well, by galvanising Europe to get their heads out their backsides, Donald Trump has single-handedly, I would suggest, got all of the countries to go, maybe we should spend a little less on the foreign aid budget and a bit more on defending ourselves. Love your thoughts on it, though. Haven't been here, but would love to know what you think. Zelensky praising the European unity after Starmer's talks. That wasn't said for 3 years, was it? No. But it was when Donald Trump got involved. 0344 499 1000. Text to 8722. Ryan is here. He'd like a voice note. Start with what for the crap if you want. 0344 499 1000 is indeed the WhatsApp number. And our Jody is back as well. Is this Starmer's moment? Is he going to come out as some sort of diplomatic hero? Is this how the boring lawyer does his business? I've no idea. But let's look at home. Yesterday, look out the window, the weather's been amazing. Channel crossings at an all-time high. A yearly high, nearly 600 illegal migrants arrived from France yesterday, a surge in small boats. And yet, this government, 10 months in, who said, we're going to deal with the gangs, not necessarily in that voice, have done absolutely zero. Nothing. What do you make of it? We've talked about immigration till we're blue in the face. Are you allowed to say blue? Probably not, but I don't give a fat rat's backside. I'm saying it anyway. Blue is a colour. The truth of the matter is, does he have a plan? He seems to have one for sorting out the world. Why doesn't he have one for sorting out our damn borders? And one story, Ryan sent this to me early doors this morning. I mean, this would, if you are, I'd like to apologise if you've just finished a long shift or you've been up since 6 o'clock this morning or whatever. More than 1 million low-paid workers in the UK are due to be entitled to 80% of their weekly salary as sick pay from the first day of illness under government plans. Currently, to qualify for... Anyway, the truth of the matter is, right, in my humble opinion, many, many moons ago when I went to work, you either went to work or went to college. Nowadays, you can indeed go to work, go to college or sign on, and now you can just sign on sick and everything's fine. What do you make of that, my friends? 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. I love a bit of BBC bashing as well. Apparently, the BBC's most senior news boss, it's been reported, watched the Gaza, whatever, documentary, and went, oh, that's fine, let's give £400,000 to Hamas. And only now have we discovered that complete imbecile did nothing about it. And my favourite other story of the day, which sort of went under the radar, but it really shouldn't have. Pin back your lug holes, peeps. You know, with everything that's going on in the world, it's really important, isn't it, net zero? No, it's not. Oh, yeah, never mind. Britain is paying, this is ridiculous, almost £180,000 an hour, you heard me. What's that across the day, right? Work it out. 180 grand an hour to switch off wind farms because there is nowhere, ready for this, for the excess power to go. So we've either got too much wind, too little wind, but we're paying £180,000. Oh, my God. No, you're wrong. You're so wrong. It's 180 grand an hour, Ryan, times 180 grand by 24. I reckon it's about 125 million pounds a month. I could be wrong. No, it's not. 0344 499 1000. Alliteration. It says, nice to have you back, Jez. I think the discussion in the White House was valid, but it should have been done in private. Very interesting. But look what Trump's done in 4 weeks. He's wiped the floor with the lot of them and changed philosophy, which brings me back. And I'm not going to name names, but I was listening to something this morning I'm not going to tell you where. And this person was saying, oh, you know, he's disgusting and he's dreadful and he's awful and he shouldn't have taken on Zelensky like that. Sort of understand that. Zelensky's a war hero, isn't he? And he's done so much for his people. But means to an end. Donald Trump doesn't want to be the most popular leader in the history of the world. Donald Trump wants to go down with a legacy as I stopped world wars and I made it better and safer for American people and I crushed immigration. I don't care what anybody says. Warts and all, Donald Trump gets stuff done. 0344 499 1000. We say a very good afternoon to he's always first on a Monday because he's a very, very important person. James Price, former government special advisor. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. Very well. How are you?
You've got the Cheltenham check on. Cheltenham, of course, the Cheltenham Festival next week. Are you going?
Well, I'm from just the town over from Cheltenham, so of course I can never go back.
Well, it's a big thing for me, and I have to pick an outfit for every day, but never mind. JP, I wasn't here when the debacle happened on Friday. Followed it with great sort of interest. You've heard my opinion that I don't like some of what he does. I didn't like watching Zelensky being brought down as he was, but you have to talk with strong leadership about a means to an end. And suddenly Britain, led by Starmer, and Europe, seemingly led by Starmer and a few others, has woken up to the reality that we need to arm ourselves, get defences and get a military in place that can deal with Russia, and we shouldn't be on bended knee to America. So if I'm Donald Trump, JP, job bleeding done.
Yeah, exactly right. It may just well be a case that saying Orange man bad, Ukraine good is not the kind of level of analysis of that we've ever come across for a while, right? It is more complicated than that. As you say, I've liked an awful lot of things that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have said and done since coming into office. I hated what I saw in the Oval Office on that day. It felt like bullying. At the same time, I can see that it looked like Zelensky was trying to litigate to get them to say some more things in public than perhaps they wanted to, and was doing that through the whole hour, which I think is a perfectly, understandable thing for him to do, to try and get Trump to come and say something about the security guarantees. Theresa May did that in Trump's first term. She just kind of came out and said, yeah, we've had a great conversation, and Trump says NATO is brilliant. And Trump just kind of rolled with it. And so I can see that being a wise tactic. Unfortunately, given the scale of Trump's victory and the way that the kind of, to use his metaphor, all the cards that he holds versus everybody else, you've just got to do the kind of kowtowing and slightly bowing and saying, oh, yes, you're wonderful, aren't you great? And Zelensky didn't do that. I understand why not. It's embarrassing to some extent. He's knackered from many years of war. His English language isn't quite as good as you might think it is from hearing him speak. When he did Fox News just afterwards, he had to check a few names and words with his translator to make sure he was getting it all. So I just think it was a really unfortunate series of events, and the only people who are really loving what's happening at the moment there will be Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Means to an end, as I said. You know, the greatest leaders in the world are not popular in any which way, certainly at certain points in their leadership. If you look at where, I mean, what is it? Zelensky praising European unity. Starmer's rushing around seeking a coalition of the willing, right? All of these things were mentioned by Boris Johnson 3 years ago when he jumped up very steadfastly and said we must support Ukraine and open our homes and provide munitions and logistical support, etc., etc. That hasn't really happened. Zelensky has been doing the rounds for 3 years, sort of garnering support and money and munitions for the cause, and we've all been very supportive of that, and the brunt of that has fallen with America. And I guess, yeah, that you're probably right. You only had to watch that sort of, I mean, when Starmer passed the letter of the king to the invite, I mean, it was palpable. All they need to do is give his golf course the British Open, and you're away. There's obviously a way to play Donald Trump, and some people will say, well, it's not his right. Well, he is the leader of the free world, so actually probably, unfortunately, sometimes you have to kiss backside, don't you? That's the way it is. But I do think out of all of this, there has been movement, strangely enough, in a positive direction.
I think that's right. I think that's going to bear fruit. And as you say, there is method in the madness. For a long time, Americans have been telling European NATO allies, why are you not spending enough money on defense? And for too long, we've not done that, which has led to the kind of structural weakness and instability on our own continent that we're seeing today. You know, throughout the coalition years, we only just about kept our 2% of GDP spending by putting pensions for soldiers into there, right? So there was kind of accountancy jiggery pokery. By Starmer's own defence increase announced the other day, he's putting the budgets of MI5 and MI6 and others as to count as part of defence. They're some of the most amazing people our country produces, has ever produced, and we'll never know how lucky we are to have those people. But it's not the same doing a bit more accountancy voodoo than it is to pay for a lot more hard materiel. And if you think about the size of our own armed forces, about 76,000, maybe 80,000 at a push overall, and Russia mobilizes that in 2.5 months. Right, so this is how far, and Germany is worse than us, France about the same as us, most of the European nations other than the Poles, who remember very well what it's like having Soviet occupation or Russian occupation, they're doing their bit. So we definitely need to do much, much more. What Starmer's announced, by the way, another couple of billion quid, is not putting us on a war footing. We are in hopeless danger right now, and I hope that this is just saber rattling from Trump, and that he isn't going to be minded to kind of, in a sort of spasm of anger and a fit of pique, pull all American forces out of Europe straight away.
I don't think he'll do that. I think he's one of those people that would annoy a lot of people. He likes a deal. He likes to be known as the man that pulls the deal, the alpha male, and all that stuff. To believe that this show is thrown together would be true. To think that this show is actually produced would be, with the greatest respect to Ryan and the team, not a great thought. But this seamless transition. Ken Spalding says, great show, but here's my question to you and to James. Starmer wants to help defend Ukraine and be the big man, but this git has no answer to defending our borders. The other story, of course, the big one of the day, JP, biggest day of the year for small boats crossings. There's nearly 600 migrants arrived in the UK yesterday alone. Look out of the window. It's going to be lovely for the next 7 days. And so one of the main reasons that Donald Trump got elected in America, and one of the biggest reasons why reforms numbers are going through the roof, is because the British people, much as I'm sure they're concerned about Ukraine and Donald Trump and Orange Man, baby, and troops, they are fed up to the back teeth with their public services stretched to the absolute hilt because this country, when I say flooded, people won't like it, tough. We are flooded by a lot of people who shouldn't be here, and whether it's because we can't work out a system to deal with them, or we're too bleeding soft, or we offer too much, I don't know. But it's going to get worse and worse as the weather improves. What's your answer to that, Starmer? Seemingly nothing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And this is the irony that's going to dawn on an awful lot of people, that we're sending some of our best people in the armed forces to go perhaps patrol a ceasefire area, a no-go zone along the Dnipro, whatever it may end up being, and yet we are completely incapable of policing our own borders. And you said flooded. I think that's a perfectly apt metaphor to use.
Oh, I'll be slagged for saying flooding. How disrespectful to people. Well, how disrespectful to come to this country and screw my country when there are people in this country who aren't getting enough. Sorry, fact.
Let's go one step further. 90-something% of the people coming over are fighting age males. That will get the left back up calling it that, but they are. When you're fleeing war and famine and persecution, you take your family with you.
Absolutely.
When you're going to war, you leave your family behind. Why is it that 90-something% of people who are coming over, fighting age males, and I'm going to say one step further, from largely alien cultures, we're finding it very, very, very difficult to assimilate people who have very different understandings about women's rights, about gay people's rights, about education in general, let alone the metaphysics of the creation of the universe, let's put it like that, or even other kinds of social policy. Right, it's very hard to do, and we've got no answer to it. And we're not going to touch the main thing that we should be touching. People can go, oh, foreign aid, it's really good because we'll help places develop. I don't think that's true, by the way. I think it's trade, not aid, that actually helps pull people.
Quite right. Finally, somebody says it. But there's another thing going back to Trump. You could sit and argue, I was having the conversation with Ricky in the office just now, that Trump single-handedly has managed to cut the foreign aid budgets of several European governments by being how he's been in the last month.
Yep. And it was this Doge thing of Elon Musk's that's highlighted just staggering waste, and not just waste would be one thing, and corruption would be one thing, but the kind of active propagation of woke nonsense, right? It's not huge amounts of money necessarily that have been uncovered in some of these areas, but the $50,000 that was sent, I think, to Chile for a transgender comic book that's meant to be, people think it's helping starving orphans with maggots eating their eyes and all this kind of stuff, right? Absolute rot. And yet across Europe, we are not doing anything about the people that, the kind of horrors that we're seeing. And even if all these guys were Shakespeare, right? There's nowhere to house them. There's no way to know who they are, what their background is. They don't have any language skills and all the rest of it. That's at one end of the spectrum. And what do we see today? Yet another terrorist attack in Germany. I would advise people perhaps not to look too deeply into it, because I've seen the photograph of a woman's dismembered leg after being hit by a car driven by, I'm sure, someone who is not the next Shakespeare, who's made his way into Germany. And this is the kind of horror that's unfolding across our continent. Trump would talk about it. He's talking about sealing the southern border in America. We need to seal our borders both in Europe in general and in the UK in particular. And a little bit of foreign aid spending isn't going to cover that. It's
God, mate, you speak sense. We're going to do something out the light, Ryan, by the way. It's that bright I can't see anything, and I look like I've actually died on screen. I'm that white. I'm whiter than my shirt. What would you like to talk about? Two other things: sick pay overhaul, or my favourite, the wind farms. What would you like to go with?
Well, let's do sick pay again as another wonderfully produced segue, because it ties in again to the kind of massively bloated welfare budget that we've got in the UK. It's a massive, massive line item. It's the single biggest line item of the British budget. Way more gets spent on welfare and pensions and things like that than on the NHS. And, for small tweaks even to that system, you could get huge amounts of economic benefit, much more so even than messing around with foreign aid and all the rest of it. Huge numbers. Even if you to go back to kind of 2019 levels of sickness, you would unlock, I think, former Chancellor Jeremy Hunt said, something like 40 billion quid if you just, change some of these things. And I'm afraid that whether it's the asylum seekers or so-called asylum seekers coming over because they know you can get benefits, whether it's people who are foreign-born who've never worked in their entire life, there are huge proportions of, say, this city of London where people have never worked in their life and are being sustained on benefits.
Can I tell you something that I've said before on this show, that I have to do it because every time I have to, and stop looking at the clock, Ryan. I did a Sun Employment Roadshow tour with the Sun for about 5 years, and we would go all over the United Kingdom, and there would be people coming and talking jobs fairs, thousands of people, right? And I'll never forget the Sun delivered this young man, and he'd got a job through the jobs fair that particular morning, smart as carrots in his new suit, been out, and it became a story. It was all over the Sun newspaper, and he was 18 years of age, been given a job, I'm going to say by Costa, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but he's brilliant, really proud. And he said to us, it was in the newspaper, that when he went home and he told his parents, he was literally accused of bringing shame upon the family. His dad had been on benefits, and you're smiling, but and his granddad had been, and they felt that he'd let the family's name down, JP. Good for him, he gets a job. We have to change that mentality. It was never meant to be, in my humble opinion, people, a career choice to sign on or go long-term sick. What happened to, we'll walk up bloody ill in the morning and work, because that's what you had to do when I was a kid. You had to.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm afraid that it's this kind of squeamishness and weakness that has led to both the kind of economic problems and a kind of social decay as well. Ronald Reagan was the man who said that the best social welfare program in the world was getting a job. He's absolutely right. But I think an awful lot of people who've entered this country illegally, who've become legal citizens here, we could get rid of a lot of these problems that we don't like, of people who are the inactive or general menaces, by just pulling the welfare rug out from under them.
Completely
and of course,
agree.
if you do that for all these, I'm just going to call them scumbags who abuse this system. By the way, there's a huge amount more money to help the people who are actually deserving.
Here. Absolutely. Finally, always so quick with you, and it's ludicrous because there's so much. This just sort of is another one of those, oh, hello, welcome to the Drive Time Show on Talk. Britain is now paying an estimated £180,000 an hour, JP, to switch off wind farms, you heard me right, because there is nowhere for the excess power to go to. So-called constraint payments, where turbines are switched off to help balance the grid, have already cost $252 million the first 2 months of 2025. The Energy Secretary says this is a necessary thing as we proceed to expand wind and solar farms across the country. 200, that's 125 million, that's £1.5 billion. I would respectfully suggest you complete Ed Miliband. That would pay for those poor pensioners to be heated during the winter, wouldn't it?
Right. Well, I heard you asking around about it. I've done the maths for you as well there. You're right. About £1.5 billion. And that's about double, I think, what the government thinks it's going to get from screwing over the farmers.
There you are.
Paul, you know, this is the kind of scale we're talking about here. And we have the most expensive energy or electricity in the world at the moment because of all this mad net zero nonsense. And instead of inspiring the world to go and do the same thing as us and have us huddling in the dark eating the bugs, people are going, oh, like, let's not be like mad or rainy Britain, right? Let's not do that. Let's go to a level of energy superabundance. Let's have loads of nuclear power, and then we can have loads of exciting other technologies. There's so much excitement to be done, except that Ed Miliband is determined that we're all going to be like Greta Thunberg and pooing in buckets and boats going across the ocean rather than...
I love you. Stay there. I love having you. We're going to do a very, very, very quick call. We're going to go to Cornwall, which is brave. John, you're on Talk Drive. JP's with me. 2 minutes. What you got?
Hi, Jeremy. Couple of big points about the weekend. Keir Starmer, without a shadow of a doubt, is the 21st century Neville Chamberlain. Peace in our time.
Waving his paper, yes.
The second big point is the fact that with America, what they're doing, Trump is doing, is exactly the same as happened before the First World War and the Second World War. They take a back seat. They don't get involved, and they are a superpower to this day because of it. And I wonder how Britain will cope if we have to defend our country 10% GDP. 10% GDP for defence.
I don't disagree. Somebody told me during the Second World War it was 60%. JP, quick response to John in Cornwall. John, thank you for that. JP?
Yeah, well, the Russians are currently spending about 44% of their GDP, and they've got an economy only the same size as Spain's. And as Winston Churchill said of the Americans, you can always count on them to do the right thing after they've done some of the wrong things first.
Brilliant. Love it, JP. You're a legend. We appreciate you coming on. James Price, thank you. More of your calls coming up. 0344 4991. Thank you to John in Cornwall. This is Talk Drive.
As of all of this nonsense seen in the Mail and various people saying that we've got to withdraw the state visit. Absolute garbage.
Yeah.
As juvenile stupidity, we should be doubling down.
But wasn't that a bit of a ridiculous move, though, as well?
What we should be doing is, at the end of the day, the British monarchy is probably the most loved around the world. It's our greatest piece of soft power, and we should be using it as much as we can.
And occasionally the government has shaved a percentage point off what it should be and hope that we'd all see this as a great boon. But the fares have relentlessly gone up every year. Interestingly, at the same time, I think since 2011 or 2012, is it, the duty on petrol and diesel fuel has not gone up at all.
Right.
So we're cranking up the cost of public transport on the railway, which we say we want people to use more, whilst, favouring
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's the home of common sense and free speech, and of course, it's the home of my Graham back with Morning Glory tomorrow morning from 6 a.m. If you want to be on drive time between now and 7, JK, who can finally see. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Hello to Ken Childs, I think that's his name. Great show. Here's my question, JK. Starmer wants to help defend Ukraine, but he's no answer defending our borders. Yes, Ken in Sporty, you are absolutely right. Adam in Sheffield, nice. If only Starmer showed the same determination and fortitude to stop the boats as he does in defending Ukraine. You see what I mean? Of course the world's an interesting and important thing and it's a worrying time and all the do-gooders are going, oh, we're going to war. What about stopping the problems in our own goddamn country? Jenny's in Oxford. Hello, Jenny. Donald Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize. It's the Europeans that award it. What chance? Not much. And I will take this. Oh, no. Paula in Cheshire. Starmer needs to sort his own country out first and control our borders. He will never have my support. He says boots to the ground. Does that include all the fighting age men he allows in the country? Very interesting. Brian in Sheffield. Let's just take a moment here, right, to read this. I've got to say, JK, you're really growing on me. Makes you sound like a bleeding fungus. I previously thought you were... Wow. I previously thought you were a bit of a Poundland Ricky Lake. Wow. But I was wrong. I love listening and watching your show now. Keep up the great work, mate, says Brian in Sheffield. You're very kind. Have we sent him money for that? Phil's in Braintree, in Essex. Excellent. Jez, what we should do is all the young guys coming across the channel, when they land, stick them in army uniform and send them to Ukraine to protect the border. Free army reserve straight away. From Phil in Braintree. I'm not thinking the army would want that, but I could be wrong. Pat's in London. You're on Talk Drive. Good afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. The thing is that if Keir Starmer wants more men, he's got to start recruiting serious. And you need at least 100,000 men at minimum. The thing is that I've got some ideas for a recruiting drive. First of all, new recruits, when they go in, apart from their army pay, they get a one-off £1,000 put into their accounts.
Right.
Secondly, their families pay no council tax.
Interesting.
And thirdly, when they come out after they've got to do maybe 5 or 6 years, when they want to get a mortgage, they get an interest-free mortgage.
Here for veterans. We never do anything for our bloody veterans, do we? We don't treat them well at all.
No, but I'm just saying, they should be the incentives that the government should put forward to getting more people to join the army.
I don't want to.
The military, at least.
Yeah. I don't want to dump on you, but I'm going to tell you this, right? The truth is that even the other day when he stood up, Starmer, and said, "Oh, we're going to spend all this money and we're going to take all the money off, from the foreign aid budget, 13 billion, blah blah blah." The big question is that going to be spent on troops or munitions or logistics or drones, or is it paying off debt, and is it actually going towards paying off, giving away the Chagos Islands to the Maldivians or whatever you call them, Moldovans, makes me sound something else. But I just want to ask you one thing, right? Genuinely one thing, because if I'm getting this wrong, I'm completely fine. I didn't like what I saw with Trump the other day and Zelensky, but I'm utterly convinced that however he goes about what he goes about, what he's achieved in a very short space of time is that Britain and Europe has realised that we cannot depend on America forever. Whilst we spend billions of pounds on ludicrous things, we should defend our own nation. Don't you think that's right?
Yes, what I'd have done if I'd have been Trump, I'd have looked at him, I'd have pulled out $1,000 and say, look, before you talk to me or before you come in here, go down the road and get yourself kitted out with a nice suit.
Listen, the answer to that, I think that's a bit petty, but listen, you and I can disagree on that. I think the man's the leader of a country that's been illegally invaded a sovereign land, and he probably doesn't give a toss about wearing a suit. But Pat, thank you, in London. Hello to Ian Hayward. Is he really listening? Is he working? Is he at home? What's he doing? Yes, very nice. 0344 419. We'll see you next week at Cheltenham. 0344 419 1000 is the telephone number. Text to 87222. You are live across the UK. This is Talk Drive. Next, a man who I struggle to keep quiet. Talks more than me. Is that possible? Henry Bolton, international border expert. A very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Afternoon, Jeremy.
Where's the flag, HB? Usually you're sat in front of the British flag. Where is it? Good lad.
There. And there's one behind me as well.
Yeah.
Carved by the United States Marine Corps for me. There we go.
You've got a small one and a big one. Henry, let's focus on this because whilst I appreciate, as do the listeners and the viewers, that there are many things going on in the world, and suddenly we've got a Prime Minister who's talking about a coalition of willing partners and we must arm and Russia's a menace. And thank you, Trump, by the way, because we've depended on you for far too long. Many people, I suspect, are saying, well, that's fine, isn't it? But actually, what about what's going on in this goddamn country? Because Trump is going to seal up the southern border, and yet again, nothing's happening. Yesterday, biggest day of the year for small boats crossings, nearly 600 illegal migrants, HB, into this country. The weather's going to continue to improve, and we're no nearer anything positive from this government as a plan. We heard a lot in the election, it's all about stopping the gangs. Well, they haven't stopped the gangs. So what to do? Talk to me.
Well, I think in terms of the pull factors, JP, who you had on earlier, pretty much, was on the money there as to what we do to disincentivise people from coming here. But I'd say just on the sort of global picture, if you like, that there are a number of things that we need to do concurrently at the same time. We need to deal with the potential for an escalation of the war in Eastern Europe. We need to deal with the paradigm shift, the global sort of. There's a new reality has descended on Europe in the last 4 days, and that fact is that Donald Trump and the United States are presently talking about the Europeans not being able to call on them for support and backup in security issues. That's major. That's
Can I jump in there, because I want to make this point, because I'd love to know what people think. When people find that, that's outrageous, that's outrageous. If you are America, OK, and you've spent all this money for years, and you see your threat in a different way, maybe China, or you feel you can do a deal with Putin, or you just feel that, you need, if you're elected, to make your people's lives better, that's what you've got to do. It is fair to say that the malaise of accepting help from America and always expecting them to be there, HB, has been... This isn't Starmer's problem, by the way. It started with Cameron. It's been too easy for successive governments to cut our defence expenditure to the point of ruination and think, don't worry, America will look after us. I'm sorry, I don't blame America at all. And you could say, let me read this to you from Sam Down in Brighton. Trump has done exactly, Jez, what he wanted to do. He isn't a fool. He said that Europe needs to pick up the baton. He wouldn't be paying anymore, and now he isn't. The whole thing went perfectly to plan. But Starmer has made a huge mistake swooping in to make him look an idiot. Any trade or tariff restrictions have been taken off the table. Who saw this coming? He said, I did, because Trump, is looking after his country. You can't argue about that, Henry. You can't.
You can't. And you're absolutely right. Look, this country has totally neglected its national security and its armed forces for the last 25 or 30 years, and you're also entirely spot on when you say that it's Cameron and George Osborne. Remember, it was Cameron who cut the wings off the Nimrod aircraft overnight, so that fleet there couldn't be any sort of political or other argument. Are you still there? Sorry, by the way.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, something.
Oh.
Apologies for that.
He's got an incoming only my fans thing. That's what he's got. What's going on there, Henry Bolton? What's happening now?
Not at all, Jeremy.
I'm joking, dear boy.
Right. And so, you're absolutely right. But we nonetheless, that new reality is hitting home, and we have to deal with that. But at the same time, we've got to defend the homeland. And part of that is what we've been talking about for years now. And this is illegal immigration, and as well as controlling legal migration. Now, for a long time, I've been saying that we need to have a strategic approach to this, a broad view. The government needs to set its vision, set direction to all government ministries and departments and agencies, and create a framework within which they can coordinate. We are still not seeing that from this government. What we're seeing is a sort of piecemeal approach. They, okay, we've got foreign national offenders now that they want to return. They've been doing reasonably well at increasing the pace of foreign national offenders from our prisons who have been returned. That's good, but that's one standalone activity. There are dozens of these standalone activities. If they were properly coordinated as part of an overall strategy, ideally under one agency, like they are in other countries, then we would be making far more progress.
Can I ask you a question? Because we've talked about this many times over the months and years, and in fact, people always say, there was a point, wasn't there, before the last election where people were saying, no, politicians don't want to cure the immigration problem because then they can throw it at each other or there isn't an answer. Now, Trump is Trump, warts and all, the orange man, baby. We can criticise him. The Zelensky thing I didn't find palatable at all. But you can argue that sometimes when you need things to happen, you have to go around them in a different way. He said, I will seal up the border. Why does not a politician, maybe Farage is that politician, realise that this is at the epicentre of millions of people's minds in the United Kingdom who feel, and it's not racist, that the public services in their country, the standard of living in their country, the safety in the country, all those things that Trump talked about, have been affected by this dearth of young men who haven't brought their wives and children. Great point, JP, because if I was escaping a war-torn country, I'd bring my wife and kids with me. In the first country I got that was OK, Henry, I'd stay. Why is there a lack of desire among politicians to do something that, without being cynical to you, my friend, would be a massive vote winner?
Indeed. Well, I'll tell you why, Jeremy, because they're not leaders, they're managers. They work by consensus rather than vision and direction. Trump, for all his faults, and I think there are many of them, there are many good things about Trump as well, but one of the main thing about Trump and why he can get obviously the law and the constitutional setup there is different to here, that helps him, but as a character, what he is able to do is exercise leadership. He says, this is what I want, and I want it now. And he directs and he enforces that. He drives it forward. He creates unity of effort through driving that forward with clear direction. We have no one in British politics who does that at the moment. None. What they do, and throughout, it's not just politics, it's the whole system, the civil service, all of the quangos, all of the various sort of committees within the NHS and education and all of this, they all work by trying to achieve consensus, which takes you ages. It means that you compromise on just about any decisive action, and you don't get very far at all. No. So that's the reason.
Ticking, but with very, very little result. Final word from you, Henry, very quickly, if you can. Do you think that Trump's approach, love it or loathe it, to immigration specifically, not just will in the end, could it have an impact on this country as seemingly he has done in terms of defence? Yes or no?
Yes. And in fact, I know the UK is at the moment has got people over there looking at what he's doing to see if we can learn lessons. They can't be transplanted to the UK because it's a very different setup, different immigration dynamic. But it might shock and kick people in the arse here in the UK into doing something. Anything would help.
Love having you on, mate. Two Flags Bolton, we're calling you from now on. Thank you ever so much for your time. Good man. 20 to 5. You were Talk Drive.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
5 o'clock, we're live across the UK. This is JK on Drive, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. So much going on. Kevin Southampton, Jez, the Oval Office on Friday should have been in private, I agree, but in a strange way it might just have worked because you give those fools in Europe a kick up the arse, which has been needed for a long, long time. Lynn from Staines, Starmer not just wanting to waste our money, he wants to use our brave soldiers as fodder. The man is an utter disgrace. Jez says, Betty, this is very true. Zelensky doesn't wear a suit for anti-propaganda protection to show solidarity with his troops and to stop the Russians producing propaganda showing him around the world looking well and having a nice time. It's about bloody morality. Churchill wore a different uniform every day. And Mick in Wallington says, the Yanks have got a bleeding nerve, just telling Zelensky to wear a suit when Musk goes around wearing a T-shirt, a chainsaw and a fancy dress in the Oval Office. Point's always taken as well. 17 minutes to 5. I was literally this morning going to ring round and go, we have to get this man on. He hasn't been on for ages. Delighted to welcome former Conservative Defence Minister Sir Gerald Howarth. Sir Gerald, a very good afternoon to you. How are you?
Well, good afternoon to you, Jeremy. Yes, I'm in fine form and the sun is shining here in glorious Suffolk, so all is well with this part of the world.
Good man. And now I was going to ask you, so illustrious career, former Conservative Defence Minister, and now this is the brilliant son-in-law James Cartledge is now Shadow Defence Secretary. Is he getting everything off the old man-in-law that he needs? Are you secretly his #1 advisor, Sir Gerald?
No, I'm his special family advisor, but I can tell you, Jeremy, he has such a brain far in excess of my intellectual abilities, and he was a superb Minister for Defence Procurement and responsible in that job. He picked up the brief so quickly. I shadowed that brief for 6 years. It took me all that time to master it, but he picked it up in a few months and shipped a load of ammunition and munitions, particularly drones, to Ukraine. He is the right man for the job and would be, I think, an excellent Defence Secretary in the next Conservative government, which hopefully is not too far away.
Right, Sir Gerald, you'll forgive me. We've always been very straight and honest with each other. Just want to try and explain what I make of the last few days. I tried to explain it at the beginning of the show. I didn't like what I saw in the Oval Office. I understand that people who, old school and new school, left and right, don't like Trump because of the way he goes about things. But it would be absolutely correct to say, would it not, that love him or loathe him, in the last 5 weeks he has almost single-handedly focused the United Kingdom and Europe on this absolute must, which is we need stronger defence. We've spent too many years, and not to have a go at you, but this started with Cameron. This is not all at Starmer's door. This started many, many moons ago. Cutting defence became the easy thing. It was the Cold War. It was fine. The reality is that became, I think, too much and too often, and we learnt to rely on America. And he's changed the game. And Sir Gerald, surely that's a good thing for the United Kingdom in the long run, isn't it?
Well, first and foremost, Jerry, it is entirely true that following the end of the Cold War, brought about by 3 people, President Ronald Reagan, an outstanding United States president, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, for whom I had the great privilege of working, and also Gorbachev, who was the Russian leader at the time. And so they brought about an end to the Cold War, and the result was that everybody clamored for the peace dividend. And that peace dividend has been taken again, including under the government of which I was a member when David Cameron was Prime Minister. But we inherited a budget deficit of £160 billion left by Gordon Brown. We had to do something. I said at the time we should not cut defence, but I was overruled. And the decision was made. But we are waking up. And David Cameron said in 2014, he urged European members of NATO to step up to the plate because he could see, as we could all see, that the United States taxpayer was getting a bit fed up. I use the polite expression, getting a bit fed up having to spend lots of US dollars in shouldering so much of burden of NATO's expenditure.
But I mean, and that's my point, which is what I wanted to centralise this discussion on, because so many people on so many stations have got so hung up on the orange man, baby. I don't care. Donald Trump is Donald Trump. But actually, in 5 short weeks, Sir Gerald, Europe, I mean, what is Starmer's talking about? A coalition of willing. He's talking about, we've got to do. If I was Trump, who, water up a duck's back, doesn't give a what's-its, does he really? I'd be thinking, actually, Europe has woken up to the reality that they cannot spend the rest of their lives depending on America to bail them out, when actually the money that they save, they spend on things that are completely irrelevant in many instances. And I think that's so important as an overview of what's going on.
Well, we can entirely agree that it is long overdue for the European members of NATO to step up to the plate. But I do not ascribe the resulting action by us and our European friends being the result of Donald Trump. It's a result of the last few years, particularly the invasion.
But you would be honest and say that actually it's moved at a pace because of the ultimatums he's delivered. Because
it has partly moved at a pace. But Jeremy, forgive me, you're in danger of being somewhat myopic and somewhat obsessed with this question of who pays for the defence of Europe. What is much more important in this discussion is what happens to Europe. And the President of the United States has given the clearest possible green light to a man intent on rebuilding the Soviet Union, that he can act with impunity. He acted with impunity in 2008 when he invaded part of Georgia. He acted with impunity in 2014 when he annexed Crimea. And he acted with relative impunity, despite the extraordinary valor of the Ukrainian people, in 2022. And it is absolutely in the interests of the United Kingdom, of Europe, and of the United States of America that NATO is preserved and that a signal is sent to Russia that they are in breach of an agreement they signed, that they would respect the sovereignty, independence, and existing borders of Ukraine. That agreement was signed in 1994 in return for Ukraine giving up its arsenal of nuclear weapons, signed by Boris Yeltsin, by Bill Clinton for the United States, and John Major for the United Kingdom. Putin has been in complete breach of that agreement. Now Donald Trump is in breach of that agreement by trying to force Ukraine to give up territory.
Can I jump in for a reason? Because we haven't got a lot of time. I completely agree with you. But if I can just qualify...
Good.
If I can... No, come on. If I can qualify, my point is this. You sit there and you say this is a direct response to what's happened over the last number of years. I agree. What I'm saying is, this might just be something that pushed them to finally sign on the dotted line, because it's been going on a long, long time. You could argue, could you not, that when he invaded in 2014, 2018, 2020, or 2021, whenever it was, 22, right? Why wasn't this, in terms of government defence spending, faced up to at that point? I think that's what a lot of people would say. I'm not saying Trump is solely responsible. What I'm saying is a series of factors have meant that something that probably should have happened a long time ago is finally happening. That's what I would say.
Well, actually, it was started under the Conservative government. Excuse me. And, of course, the present government has also announced that it intends to increase defence expenditure. But we do need to examine the actual facts and make sure that we're not being shown smoke and mirrors, and that we're not really going to see the result. One of your guys on the programme a moment ago said that what we need is 100,000 extra troops. I think he meant soldiers. But we need new recruits across all 3 services. There's a shortage of engineers in the Royal Navy. Ships can't put to sea. And it is but the nation, Jeremy, I hope in your programme, the nation will wake up, stop obsessing with a narcissistic president of the United States whose behavior on Friday was nothing short of puerile and preposterous.
Couldn't agree more.
No leader of the free world should behave like that. And to bully and gesticulate and cajole the leader of a country trying to defend his people from a foreign aggressor, a brutal foreign aggressor, is no way for the leader of the United States and the leader of the free world to behave, and he should be ashamed of the way he behaved.
So, Gerald, I could talk to you forevermore. You know that. Please don't leave it so long. It did come out of James. Well, forget James Cartledge. You're the man. We'll have you on as often as we can. Thank you so much indeed. So, Gerald Howard, former Conservative Defence Minister, right here on Drive. What is it? 8 minutes to 5. 0344 499 1000. Call me now.
as of all of this nonsense seen in the Mail and various people saying that we've got to withdraw the state visit, absolute garbage.
Yeah.
As juvenile stupidity, we should be doubling
But wasn't
down.
that a bit of a ridiculous move, though, as
What
well?
we should be doing is, at the end of the day, the British monarchy is probably the most loved around the world. It's our greatest piece of soft power, and we should be using it as much as we can.
And occasionally the government has shaved a percentage point off what it should be, and hope that we'd all see this as a great boon. But the fares have relentlessly gone up every year. Interestingly, at the same time, I think since 2011 or 2012, is it, the duty on petrol and diesel fuel has not gone up at all.
Right.
So we're cranking up the cost of public transport on the railway, which we say we want people to use more, whilst, favouring
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back 5 to 5, 0344 499 1000. My old mate Ian Hayward, I've just rung him. He's had a tooth out. Ridiculous. To the phone lines, let's go to Exeter. That reminds me of him because he talked like that. David, you're on Talk Drive. You've got 2 minutes only. Go.
I think when you opened up, Jeremy, your comments to Ian about how you saw what Trump had actually effected, looking through the bluster of unifying Europe and getting them to wake up to the reality that they're at war, is absolutely correct.
I mean, Sir Gerald Howard said, he's a narcissist. And I get all that. I get all that. Yeah. I get that he puts people's backs up. I'm not sitting here going, Donald Trump is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But if all of what Sir Gerald Howard said is true, then why the hell have we not, for the last 10 years during Conservative governments, spent more on defence? Because we've known the bloody Americans will always bail us out, and that's not going to happen anymore. So you could argue for his own people, he's done the right job.
I think that's absolutely correct. I mean, I spent a lot of time with Gerald lobbying in defence in Commons and the Lords, particularly over the Brexit period, where it was absolutely academic to anyone with half a brain that we needed to rearm 10 years ago. So I think that's correct. But I think what Trump's doing here, he's doing some kind of upfront version of lease lend.
I just think it's all about deal. It's about bluff. It's about ego. I felt sorry for Zelensky. I didn't like it. It should have been in private. But unfortunately, if you give people billions of dollars, occasionally people will jump up and down and say, I want you to be grateful. I don't think it was right. I didn't like it. I thought it was unpalatable. But if you're an American person, the 90 million that voted for him, and he said, we're going to make you better off and we're going to put you first, they're all in America going, yeah, thank you very much indeed, Donald. You've shown a pair of bits. It's like Starmer. Suddenly, he wants a willing coalition. You could say he's been focused in the last 3 days. Imagine if he actually listened to Trump about goddamn immigration problems. Maybe we'd seal the border. David in Exeter, thank you very much indeed. We'll shoot to London. Ian, you're also on a 2-minute clock. What you got?
Right, basically, it's funny that you mentioned at the very start about the electricity and that you couldn't store it.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, this is a breaking news story today. It's a classic. It absolutely sums up why this country's on its arse. Britain is now paying almost £180,000 an hour. Yes, an hour, to switch off wind farms because there's nowhere for the excess power to go.
Yeah. Basically, what do you think one of the minerals is that Ukraine has got plenty of? Lithium. And what do lithium make? Batteries. So if you want to store the electricity, you get the lithium and you store the electricity, and then you don't have to pay to turn the windmills off.
Right. Well, he's very intelligent. I didn't know that. What do you make of the whole... You've got a minute. What do you make of the whole Trump thing and Zelensky and what's going on in the world?
Totally agree with you. Very rude, very arrogant. The whole thing was a joke, right? But I think that the reason he did it out in the open, because that way he could put it across to Macron and to Starmer and all the rest. This is what's going on. I really get what Sir Gerald Howard said, and I know the world was a different place. But no politician in this country has had the balls to stand up and say, apart from Nigel, to be fair, we need to rearm, OK? And Donald Trump doesn't care about being popular or being unpopular. He will fight tooth and nail for what he believes is the right thing. And yeah, you're so right. It was horrible what happened last week. But at the end of the day, he feels, Trump,
that they have been carrying the can for Europe for a long, long time, and I suspect he'll be sat there going, well, they're all moving now, aren't they? Old Starmer arrives in Washington with an invite from the King and I'm spending 13 billion more. I didn't see that happening while the Tories were in power. I'm not blaming or complimenting Starmer. I'm just saying successive governments haven't done enough, have they?
No. And the funny thing with that sort of meeting at the weekend, the one person I couldn't believe that was there was Trudeau, who absolutely hates Trump because he's been told, but now he's being kicked out of office. So what was he doing there? Was it Schultz from Germany as well, that he's out? So wait a minute, they're yesterday's news.
Very interesting. Listen, good to have you on, Ian, in London. Thank you. Tell your friends about Talk. We're on Drive until 7. So common sense and free speech. This is JK watching Nigel Farage saying the House of Commons is not representative of the great British public. It's 600... Yeah, you're right, Nigel. 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number. Jodie taking your calls. Text to 87222. We, though, will do the news at 5, and that is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome, gang. Hour 2 of Drive on Talk. We're having free speech and common sense for Monday afternoon. We're live across the UK. We're delighted to have you here, all 11 of you. If you want to take part, 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. You can leave a WhatsApp message, a sort of voice note to Ryan, who hasn't had one yet and he's feeling quite hacked off, will I? And he's gone. He's left the building. I need him and he walks out. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. Some breaking news. He's at it again on Truth Social. US President Donald Trump says America, this is just out, will not put up with it for much longer as he hits out again at President Zelensky. Speaking on his social media site, the president said the Ukraine leader made the worst statement that could have been made when saying that the end of the war with Russia is very, very far away. It is what I was saying. This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has America's backing. What are they thinking? Trump's still digging, still digging, still digging. Rachel says, this is really interesting. Lots of people have an opinion on this. There's no one right answer, is there? Rachel says, I am sick to death of hearing people attack Trump and Vance even. European countries give away millions weekly, paying for God knows what and to allow people to enter their countries, yet they expect the United States of America to cover their shortfall to defence. Natasha has blatantly been listening to Drive and thinks it's breakfast. She says, I used to respect Sir Gerald Howe's views, but he clearly dislikes Trump, as witnessed just now in an interview with Mike. Brilliant. The fact is, his government and Europe did absolutely nothing when Russia invaded Crimea. But now that Trump has upped the ante, they're all running around making all sorts of promises to help Ukraine. 0344 499 1000. Let's head north to Lancashire. Mark, you're on Drive. A very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Yes, hello there, Jeremy. Second time I've called you, so I'm a little bit nervous, but...
You are? I'm terrified, man. We'll get through it together. Control yourself. Chill out.
OK, no worries. It's just moving forward with the Ukraine war. Now, I'm an ex-serviceman. I joined as a boy at 16, and unfortunately, they had to leave due to medical reasons. I got medical discharge. Now, I've got a couple of grandkids, and one's 17 and one 18. And I'm just worried for the future, because if this escalates and Starmer starts putting boots on the ground, something kicks off, and then we end up in real trouble. I want to know whether or not, if conscription happens, is that just British passport holders, or does that mean everybody in the UK, every fighting age? That's my concern, that we send young men, British men, over there, and we've got millions of illegal migrants here at fighting age. What do you think of that?
Mate, been brought up already. I think it's a very salient point. I think they're two separate things. I've always thought about the army, and I mean this. I mean, I've said it quite vociferously, and I've said it for years. I don't understand why we have... Let me read you something. I keep going back to it, and it annoys everybody because it's the same thing. But I'm going to find it. Just talk amongst yourselves. 0344 499 1000. This was sent to me last week, and I sort of think that this... Not going to be able to find it now. Terrible, yes. I think this sums up why a lot of people are fed up with what's going on and can sort of understand what Trump is saying. This was sent to me, right? The leaders of 500 million Europeans are waiting for 340 million Americans to protect them from 140 million Russians who haven't been able to beat 30 million Ukrainians in 3 years. Of course, Ukraine, Russia is wrong. Russia's a menace. Ukraine, it's a European war. But I do think that the British people, and I hate to get this wrong, I tread carefully, whilst they appreciate that, I do think the British people are increasingly going, well, hold on a minute, our borders are open, our social, the things that matter to us, social services are defunct because we're overrun. There isn't enough money to do this. We haven't got an army, we haven't got an NHS, we've got a bloated civil service, we've got people who can stay on the dole for the rest of their lives and never work. And I think the British people have become more and more, if you like, concerned about those things. It doesn't mean they're not concerned about what's going on in the wider world. But the reason that Trump was and is so popular in America is because he put the American people first, didn't he? And that's what I think politicians in this country fail to do repeatedly.
Yeah, I can't agree more with that. I mean, obviously my concern is going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. And sometimes you look, I mean, I've got kids, I've got young kids, you look at it and you think, what the hell is the world going to be? But you have to believe in your heart of hearts that there will be an answer. Somebody like, Trump he's out there, but he gets results. There are other politicians who have pussyfooted around for years and done nothing. Listen, keep the faith. Good to have you on. And by the way, I will say this, I say it all the time. What you and your colleagues did for this country was never fully appreciated. The way we treat veterans is crap. And if I could do anything, I would change that. I think you're an amazing man. Thanks for coming on. Let's go to Belfast. It's a new caller. It's Paul. You're on Talk Drive. Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing great, and how are you today?
I'm very well, sir. Thanks for tuning in. What can we do for you?
Well, I've been listening to your show, obviously, and it seems to be just like most of the British media, apart from your show, now I have to say, but generally in the British media, it's all about, the attitude. And the clip that was shown, the short clip about, Trump and J.D. Vance laying in on TV to Zelensky. But in the whole, if you had to watch this, people had to watch the whole interview or the whole broadcast. You could clearly see right from the start that Zelensky was in a bad mood. His body language was wrong. He was rolling his eyes. You never seen this all on TV unless you were watching the whole thing. And he just looked to be there with total disdain for President Trump. And let's remember, President Trump, whether you like it or not, was elected by the majority of the people in the United States to be their president on the promise of putting America first. And that's exactly what he's doing. Now, under the Biden administration, America pumped $700 billion. Just think about that for 1 second. $700 billion into Ukraine. And only 2 weeks ago, Zelensky was on, and people forget, people have a very short memory, saying, well, I didn't get that $700 billion, I only got half of it, where did the rest go? Ukraine is, and historically has been, a very, very corrupt country. It also historically was always part of Russia. Whether you like it or not, it was. And I know they got their independence. Their independence came through 2 agreements. One with Stalin, who said, we'll break up the Soviet Union, in theory, where they gave Latvia and such their sort of half-autonomous independence. But Ukraine never had independence. Ukraine was always part of Russia up until recently. And the old adage used to be 2 eyes and 1 face. And if you look back on I was just watching recently The World at War, which was a series on BBC 1 year ago, and all the footage in it describing the war, there was no mention of Ukraine. It's just Russia. And then whenever Hitler went to attack Moscow, he actually diverted and turned right to Kiev. This is a hard historical fact. And if you look at the war, it doesn't mention Ukrainians. It only ever mentioned Russians. So that's the first thing. The Ukraine is really a new state that was originally Ukraine was set up as it is now by Gorbachev and Yeltsin. Yeltsin, first of all, signed.
I don't want to appear rude, mate, because I would always allow everybody to think. I just want to ask you to bring it to this, if that's okay, because I've got people lined up. Do you believe that the way Trump is, strong-armed, orange man, baby, grumpy, whatever, I'm not bothered about that. People get so wound up about that. So he was rude to the bloke, right? Well, they're trying to sort out a war. Do you think that he has a point in terms of the amount of money that they have spent vis-a-vis Europe in its entirety, that's cut back on defence for years under successive governments and has always thought, oh, don't worry, the good old Americans will bail us out? Because that, for me, is the main issue here.
Well, 100%. And like I just said, it was Zelensky himself that went on the media a couple of weeks ago and saying, look, Biden said I got 700 million, I only got 350. Where's that money going? So Trump is already looking at where the money is going, and no way is he going to spend any more. He's absolutely right. America is being overrun, as we all know, across the borders. People come from all over the world, the same as the UK. And instead of worrying about the feelings of somebody that wasn't even elected, which is Zelensky.
Well, he was, wasn't he? He was Democrat. But hold on a second, that's not right. He was democratically elected, wasn't he?
Well, you could argue that point. It was after a coup because Ukraine was trying to align with Russia again. But if you would just stick to the point, America has been pumping billions into Ukraine. It's a fact as well that a lot of the weapons and a lot of the armaments and the machinery and everything has now fallen into the hands of ISIS and other terrorist organisations. So it's no wonder Trump wants to clamp down on this. And besides, this war has been going on since 2011 and then again in 2014.
I got to, Paul, I'll tell you something. Lovely. Great to have you on. Belfast, a great city. Please keep it talk. Sorry that we have to move on, but really appreciate you making your call. And that's the beauty, OK? Of talk. People will go, I didn't agree with him. That's a bloody democracy, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. If you didn't hear the breaking news, Donald Trump's been at it again on Truth Social literally 5 minutes ago, hitting out at Volodymyr Zelensky again, saying the Ukrainian leader made the worst statement that could have been made when saying at the end of the war with Russia is very, very, very far away. What are they thinking? If he wants a deal, he needs to get his head out at you. I didn't say it. 0344 499 1000. Now, we spoke to Sir Gerald Howarth, former Defence Minister. Now we speak to another former Conservative Cabinet Minister who's free of the shackles of being an MP, and he's going to be doing summer season with me in Bridlington. I'm joking. Sir John Redwood, a very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm in good form.
Now, I want to put something to you, and I want to see your face, because you, since you gave up, you've been really brilliant, and I mean that. I'm just going to throw it out there. Sir Gerald had his opinion. I get that Donald Trump is not everybody's cup of tea. I get that to a lot of, steadfastly plain politicians, he's a dreadful, dreadful man who should never have shouted at Zelensky. But I started this show by saying that in 5 short weeks, and you know what I'm going to say, what this man has managed to do is what this bloody country under successive Tory and other governments and most of Europe hasn't done, which is arm itself adequately. And whilst I don't like what happened to Zelensky, it would be entirely wrong, would it not, Sir John, to not say that if it's means to an end, what he's done is Starmer, Europe, NATO are suddenly all going, oh, maybe we should spend some more money on defence, which we should have done under your party for 14... I genuinely mean that. I really do.
Yeah, I think Trump has been absolutely right to take on the argument again that Europe needs to make much more provision for its own defence. After all, we're all members of NATO. Everybody remembers Clause 5, which says that if one is attacked, everyone is attacked, and we should go and help them. It's not an obligation, mind you. It's a request that people go and help. They all forget Article 3, which is the prior one, which is in a way more important, which says that every NATO member must provide for its own self-defence. They don't want weaklings. They don't want countries that can't be bothered. They don't want free riders. It's there in the treaty. And most of these people on this side of the Atlantic didn't want to read the whole treaty. They just latched on to one clause, which implied that good old Uncle Sam would put in all the money, all the investment, and when necessary, would send the troops over here to sort the mess out or send over the planes. But I mean, Trump's been right on other things. I mean, I think he's absolutely right about massive waste and bad management of the American government. And if that's true of America, it's even more true of the United Kingdom and probably quite a lot of the continental European governments. But I leave them to get on with their own issues. But, I can point to tens of billions that is needless or wasteful or bad spending in the United Kingdom. So I think we can have that much bigger defence budget. I think it needs to be bigger than Sir Keir Starmer is nervously suggesting. And I think we can have the tax cuts to promote growth without putting the borrowing up. Now, why won't they get to work on productivity in the public sector, which is a 40 billion hit that they've allowed to happen in recent years?
Can I ask you a question? You were a cabinet minister. What it started with Cameron. Was it just the easy choice, do you think, for governments, successive governments, because of Uncle Sam, to cut back on the very thing that I would have thought was paramount to an island, which is to defend itself with an adequate army? Do you sit here now, because you've been great, I'd have you on every day, you said we made mistakes. Was that a massive mistake of 14 years of Tory rule, a continual cutback of our military?
Yes, sir. We spent far too little, and it was for the good reason that some people around the table thought the threat had much reduced. I was not quite so sure about that myself, but we now see there are quite a lot of threats out there. And then there was the not so good reason, the one we've been talking about today, which is that I think people just felt reassured. They thought, well, we know that America is going to supply 75, 80% of the NATO heft or whatever. Aren't we lucky? They're still there. We'll be friends with them, give them the odd state visit, and away we go.
And that's why there's this enduring special relationship. What did you make? What do you make of going forward? Trump has obviously beaten his chest, done what happened in the Oval Office. Yes, that should have been in private. I'm not going to do it if he does. Is this all posturing, or do you think genuinely that the United States of America will carry out this threat and say to Europe and NATO, not that you're on your own, but you can take the bloody lead. I'm looking at China, I'm looking at my southern border. Sorry, I'm not wiping your backside anymore the whole time unless it's reciprocated.
Well, I think President Trump seriously wants peace in Ukraine, and I believe him when he speaks very passionately about too many people dying and the needless slaughter of young men of both Russian and Ukrainian origin, and the dreadful damage being done to a once good farming area and a good industrial economy. And he sees the great economic opportunities which he would like America to help Ukraine develop so they were making money instead of losing money. I think that's all sincerely held beliefs. And it means that Ukraine has got to mend the fences, because America greatly hopes she can get a deal with Putin, which she will then give to Ukraine and say, well, that's it. Are you going to take it or aren't you? And I think if Ukraine says no, she doesn't want a deal, then I think America will say, well, fine, you fight your own war.
Do you think that he is, certain members of the press, many members of the press, certainly on the BBC side and other stations, see Trump as an uneducated pro-Russian thug? Literally a pro-Russian thug. Is he pro-Russian, Sir John Redwood? You were in cabinet, or is he playing a role here? He's a deal doer. Is he just trying to get a deal done at all costs and doesn't actually, which he's proving, give a toss if he upsets somebody along the way? Why would he if he's getting a deal done? I don't know.
Well, I think he's mainly a deal doer, and I think it's very bad of people close to the government in this country to badmouth him, because whatever you think of him privately, he is the fully elected President of the United States of America. I believe his intention to seek peace is a perfectly honourable intention. And yes, if you want to be anywhere near him to influence that, you shouldn't be bad-mouthing him. Some people will say they fear he's giving too much ground to Russia and asking too many compromises of Ukraine. Well, that is a judgment. And that's why those who take that view need to be available to influence Trump and to be taken seriously by him. But if they're bad-mouthing him and going home and just saying this man is dreadful, they won't have any influence at all, and it would increase Trump's resolve to settle it on any terms.
God, I can see why you lasted 37 years. Right, couple of other things, Sir John Redwood. You'll love this. Look at him, he's looking deadly serious at me. Yesterday, this will shock you, pal, a new yearly high as nearly 600 illegal migrants arrived from France. This great belief of this government to deal with the gangs hasn't materialised. Starmer currently playing Leader of the Free World, Part 2. Sunny weather saw a surge in small boats over the weekend. Days after Yvette Cooper pledged that millions more to tackle will be spent to tackle smuggling gangs. It seems that in 10 short months, despite what's happening on the world stage, we seem to have successive governments, certainly this government, and the Tories didn't do great, completely incapable of dealing with something that, unless, again, I'm missing the point, seal your border, process the people, become a bit tougher and stop making it such a paradise to come to when your own people are really struggling. I don't see how that's so difficult, Sir John. I don't get it.
Well, ministers have found it extremely difficult, and I used to be able to talk to the then ministers about it and urge them to do better, and there was always another problem. We seemed to have an establishment that was very much on the side of the migrants and never on the side of the settled will of most people in this country, and we had lawyers who took that view and then always appealing to superior courts and using human rights. I and others tried to get them to amend the law to get rid of the international law problem, but they also have an enforcement problem. And they've got to be willing to send more people back very quickly after they've arrived, finding that they were illegal and they had no proper asylum case. And they've got to only allow, say, one appeal and get on with it. We have these multiple appeals and people then bed down and live their lives in this country. And it gets progressively more difficult to say to them, you've got to leave. And it's not just the ones coming by small boats. I mean, that attracts most of the attention. But that's a rather small proportion of the total number of illegal migrants, because the most time we get illegal migrants is by people who come legally on short-term visas. They come on a student visa or a visitor visa or whatever, and then they just overstay. And we don't have a Home Office that follows them up and says, you had your 3 months, you had your 2 years, whatever it is, you must now leave. We need to enforce those visa requirements as well.
It's great. Honestly, it's great to have you on. Please come on. Can you come on every week, or are you busy? You're in loving retirement, aren't you?
No, I've got some time. I'm very happy to come and talk to you. I like talking.
Hey, who'd have known that? And so do I. Sir John Redwood, thank you so much indeed. 5:22, we're live across the UK. Good man. Sees it with a bigger view, doesn't he, really? Understands and admits that his government and other governments got it wrong, that there was, he said it. Oh, Uncle Sam will pick up the bill. Uncle Sam... No, Uncle Sam won't anymore. Love it or like it, but it's not about Trump. It's about a bigger picture. 0344 499 1000. Jodie, well, honestly, I mean, I'm one of your biggest fans, but the tea is... What's happening today? We're not getting a cup of tea. Ryan's desperate. He's slagging you off something chronic. This is Talk Drive. We're back in 3. I'm off for a wee.
as of all of this nonsense seen in the Mail and various people saying that we've got to withdraw the state visit, absolute garbage.
Yeah.
As juvenile stupidity, we should be doubling
But wasn't
down.
that a bit of a ridiculous move, though,
What we should be doing is, at the end of the day, the British monarchy is probably the most loved around the world. It's our greatest piece of soft power, and we should be using it as much as we can.
And occasionally the government has shaved a percentage point off what it should be and hope that we'd all see this as a great boon. But the fares have relentlessly gone up every year. Interestingly, at the same time, I think since 2011 or 2012, is it, the duty on petrol and diesel fuel has not gone up at all.
Right.
So we're cranking up the cost of public transport on the railway, which we say we want people to use more, whilst, favouring
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 5:26. It's also the home of Mike Graham. He's back with Morning Glory tomorrow from 6. You can get a bumper sticker. His bumper sticker thing's gone absolutely nuts. Hundreds of thousands. I'm not even joking. Everybody wants a picture of him on their bumper. I was thinking of launching something different on drive time, but I'm not allowed to do it because I get into trouble. I was going to take the P out. No, I'm joking. 0344 499 1000. Mike Graham back in the morning. We're here until 7 o'clock. Ryan's looking very, very happy. Slightly worried. Jodie's very happy. Made a cup of tea. She's smiling. The world's a happy place. Amy always smiles. Permanent wind. We say a very good afternoon to the chief political correspondent, ladies and gentlemen, of the Sun newspaper. We're not shabby on this show. Jack Elsom, how are you, son?
Not bad, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Now, you see you got your tie on. You're looking really important, but you keep sending me pictures of you drunk at things, don't you? On WhatsApp. What's going on?
Well, I thought that what happens in a private WhatsApp conversation stays in a private WhatsApp conversation. Although maybe because I work in Westminster, I should know better. But
I would have thought.
I did send you some nice pictures.
I'm joking. They were lovely pictures. By the way, on a serious note, old boy, are you Cheltenham next weekend? Next week?
That is currently to be decided. I might come up, but I might have to stay here and man the fort.
I'm going to take your case up with Harry Cole, who, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, big news. Harry Cole, who works with Jack, doing drive time on this very station on Thursday, 4 till 7. Honestly, it'll be fantastic. Harry Cole, drive time on Talk. I think what you say to him is, Jack, right? This is what and I'm going to say this to him. If you don't let me come to Cheltenham, Jez isn't going to take you to that amazing restaurant that you wanted to go to, and you're not going to get to do drive time because it was me who introduced you to Jez in the first place. So I think you should take credit. I'll do that for you, kiddo. Promise you.
Thanks very much. I'll send in this clip straight after this.
Good man. So listen, obviously the Trump thing seems to dominate, and I wasn't here on Friday. Just love an overview. I gave my opinion at the top of the show. You're much more on the button than me, but my view would be I don't like a lot of what goes with Trump, some of the baggage. I didn't find what happened in the Oval Office palatable. But what I said to Sir Gerald Howth and Sir John Redwood, and I thought Sir John Redwood's response was spot on, was for about 20 years, successive governments in this country have steadfastly ignored the need to spend more on defence. In fact, actually, they've done the complete opposite and cut defence, the easy option, whilst taking up and picking up the baton of other things, whilst always believing that good old Uncle Sam will come and defend. And I think that what Trump has done in 5 short weeks, Jack, is to turn Europe and the UK into a body that's going, oh, Christ, actually, we better spend more on defence and we better not rely on them forevermore, and we better spend less on foreign aid and more on the aid of our own people. And isn't that, like him or loathe him, exactly what Trump set out to do?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that two things can be true. You can, one, hold the position that the president's antics in the Oval Office with Zelensky were pretty demeaning and pretty cruel to a man who was clearly right up against it and leading pretty heroically his country into war with Russia. But also the fact that you might not like his style with a lot of things, but undeniably Donald Trump's actions since he became president just a few months ago have jolted Western allies into action and sent a pretty clear message that they can no longer free ride on the coattails of America. I mean, do we honestly think that Keir Starmer would have made that announcement about increasing defence spending to 2.5% by 2027 if Donald Trump was not in the White House. I mean, that announcement was made just as much as it was in the Oval Office as it was in Downing Street.
And
I think
also,
other
actually,
countries are now wising up to that.
Mate, I'm completely with you, Jack. And in fact, going back, I said to Sir Gerald Howarth, and he said to me, well, you're giving too much credit to this desperate human being. I mean, he's this, he's that. Said, but you've just talked about how when he invaded in 2014, NATO said this is unacceptable. If for example, NATO or Europe was that appalled by Vladimir Putin, right, in 2022, in terms of being pro-Ukraine, it was Boris Johnson who was very vocal at that point. Why didn't we then do more at that point? This belief that the Cold War was over and everything was fine, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna sound Trump-esque, I think is really bloody lazy and has been lazy of successive governments in this country. And I don't blame Trump. I don't like the way he did the Zelensky thing, I'll say it again, but I don't blame him saying to the American people, do you know what? We're a bit skint, we're spending money, forget, I mean, his was a personal response, so he doesn't look like he's grateful. That's childish, I get all that. But the fact of the matter is, if you get elected to say, I'm going to make your lives better, fairer, safer and whatever, financially more secure, you've got to stand up and do this stuff, right?
Yeah, and he's just totally playing to his domestic audience. Yeah. I think that, and we saw this a bit this afternoon in the House of Commons, there seems to be across the political aisle in Britain a love for Ukraine and wanting to stand behind President Zelensky. It's not exactly the same in America, and a lot of the American public who have spent, most of their lives watching their country get sucked into foreign wars and paying for the privilege are getting a bit sick of it now. And so when Trump talks about not wanting to bankroll Ukraine and European security anymore, he's really talking to these people that are a bit fed up with that. Now, that now opens a gap on the world stage for countries like Britain, countries like France, other European nations, this coalition of the willing, as Keir Starmer describes it. The crucial million-dollar question is going to be whether European countries alone are enough to keep the peace, pay for it, and sustain it.
Which is exactly, I guess, Pal, going back to it,
what different kettle of fish than Europe.
Yeah, and going back to it, I guess that's what Trump wanted. The coalition of the willing or the unwilling. Let's move on to a story that I know you've been right behind. We could talk about Starmer and Trump all day and Zelensky. Led a great Sun story from you. Channel crossings. Oh, God. Hit a new yearly high yesterday as 600 illegal migrants arrived from France, that war-torn country just about 60 miles away. Sunny weather saw a surge in small boats over the weekend, just days after Yvette Cooper, the latest hapless Home Secretary, pledged millions more to tackle smuggling gangs. Some 592 made the dangerous journey in 11 vessels, busiest day since last December. It takes the total for this year, Jack, to 2,700, just above the figure, well, about 20% above the figure of the Tories in power this year. I'm not even interested in whether it's good or better than the Tories or whatever. He's been in power for 10 months, the coalition leader of the willing. He's done absolutely nothing to cure this problem, and it doesn't go away, does it?
Yeah, it's been about 8 months now, hasn't it, since Labour got into power. And since then, we've had a flurry of announcements on small boat crossings, whether that is various third-party deals with other countries like Iraq, whether that is the new Border Security Command, Yvette Cooper going out to Calais just last week to have a look at the work being done by French police. And at the moment, it doesn't seem to have shifted the dial whatsoever. In fact, boat crossings for this year are actually tracking above what they were last year. And the total sum of the time of about when they've been in power, like you said, is about 20% up in that period. And so I think that a lot of the British public now, who took Labour at good faith that they would smash the gangs, are going to look at them and say they need to pull their finger out, because it's not something which is going well for them so far. The Tories clearly making lots of political hay over this. They clearly didn't manage to fix it while they were in power. No. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp is once again floating the idea of the Rwanda plan and saying, even if not that, then you need some form of deterrent so people don't come over here.
Well, you're a political commentator. You've got a proper job. I respectfully suggest that we need a politician in this country, whether it's Nigel Farage or another, who works out that, floated the idea. I like what you did there. The fact of the matter is, in my humble opinion, if we, the United Kingdom, cannot come up with a body of professionals that can process claims quickly and efficiently, if we cannot get our blob to understand that the British people are very humane, but they are not going to be cast as eighth in line to people who have done nothing. And most of all, I would respectfully suggest that if we made it less comfortable when people came here, if we actually said, you know what, we're not going to prefer you to pensioners. We're not going to prefer you to veterans of the armed forces. We're not going to wipe your backside. If you've come from a war-torn country, yes. But you are not going to come here and sponge off us to the detriment of our own people. That is no longer racist. That is no longer unfair. That is what millions of people, Jack Elsom, in this country feel, because they're fed up. And I don't know why politicians don't tap into that. And it might sound Trump-like, mightn't it? But he doesn't give a damn who criticises him because he's following through the promises that he made. That's what we need.
Yeah, and here is a stat which I think really goes to the heart of the problem of the last 6 or 7 years, which is that since 2018, just 3% of people who have come here on a small boat have been returned. Now, if you are a migrant going to make this journey from Calais,
is that it? 3%?
3%. It came out last week from the Home Office stats. Now, if you are a migrant in Calais and you are contemplating making this incredibly dangerous journey, you're going to take those odds, aren't you? Because if you know there's a 97% chance that you'll be able to stay in the country, even if your asylum claim gets rejected, a lot of people, it's incredibly hard to remove them anyway.
Sarcasm alert.
You probably take that chance.
Sarcasm alert. Do you think that the reason they do that incredibly difficult journey is because there's a 97% chance that they'll stay in this country, or because they're trying to get away from war-torn France?
Well,
It's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why people... I have this argument with a lot of people and they say to me, oh, you're being really unfair. You don't know what it's like. No, I don't. I don't know what it's like to come from a war-torn country. But somebody, I think it was James Price, you'd have been working, said this an hour and a half ago, Jack. If you were escaping a war-torn country, you'd bring your wife and kids with you. You wouldn't leave them with bombs raining down on their heads. No, these are fighting males, age-wise. That's who's coming to this country to sponge. And I don't understand why it's wrong to say that anymore. I really don't.
Yeah, and hotel use has gone up. Labour government before the election said they were going to end hotel use. It's gone up by about 8,000 since the election. So I do think they've got a real struggle on their hands. I mean, they are clearly ramping up deportations. However, the vast majority of deportations are either foreign national offenders, so not the sort of illegal migrants we're talking about, and also the majority of them are going voluntarily rather than forced deportations.
Right.
And then also, I think that there's now a lot of scrutiny on the role of the French in this, because ever since we signed that deal with them in 2023, Rishi Sunak signed, we've paid them about £500 million. And at the moment, it's not exactly clear what we're getting for it.
Well, we're getting nothing.
We haven't got the detention centre, which they promised they'd build. They say they are intercepting some migrants, but still so many more are slipping through the net than actually they stop. And even if they do manage to stop them, they're not detained. They're just back in Calais and they can have another crack whenever they like. And so I think that Yvette Cooper, I think, is starting to cotton onto this, hence why she went out there last week. We need to get a lot more bang from our buck from the French, because at the moment they don't seem to be pulling their weight in this. Emmanuel Macron doesn't seem to have any interest in stopping this crisis whatsoever, even though I think there's a strong argument to be made that if he did stop people crossing the channel, then maybe people wouldn't come to France in the first place.
I was trying, as you were doing that, I was thinking bang from our buck or what from our franc. I couldn't come up with something. My brain doesn't work like that. Right, listen, I'm going to help you get to Cheltenham. Bit of a test.
Thank you.
Because I love you, right? Listen.
I've got my tie as well now, so
yeah,
I'm auditioning for it.
So we're gonna tape this, get ready, Ryan, push record. So, Jack Elsom from The Sun, what will you be doing at 4 p.m. on Thursday? Listening to this, because Harry's doing it.
I'll be watching Harry Cole on Drive on talkTV.
And he's
an amazing boss, an amazing broadcaster, doyen of political journalism, and all-round handsome chap.
And Cole, if you can't let him come to Cheltenham after that, you're fired. Thanks, mate. See you soon. Drive time.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You've been warned. He is the Donald Trump of talk. He is the man. He's the main man. And he's back tomorrow morning from 6 o'clock. And I'm delighted to call him my friend. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Let's try a bit of phone action, shall we? That sounded really weird. What's wrong with you, Carl? Let's go to Portsmouth. Oh, such memories. Julie, you're on Talk Drive. How are you, my darling?
Yeah, not bad, thanks, Jeremy.
Oh, God, I'm sorry I said darling. That's objectifying you. I do apologise. Let's do that again.
No, I don't care about all that woke garbage.
Let's go to Portsmouth. How are you, old sweetheart? How are you, Jules?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks, Jeremy.
Good. What you got?
I'm just really annoyed about the Trump bashing, to be honest with you. I mean, he's right in what he's saying. Europe needs to step up. He's looking after the American people. And probably what the media and people don't know in this country, according to Democrat Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, President Zelensky met with a group of anti-Trump Democrats who told him to reject the terms of the mineral deal. So he went in there on Friday with no intentions of signing that deal. He's not interested. And also when they go on about, oh, you know, he turned up in his sweatpants. If you were going to a customer to get a sale from them, you'd go a little bit smarter. Elon Musk, when he goes into the Oval Office, he's working there. He doesn't need to go in and impress. But when you're going somewhere for a handout of money, you should turn up a little bit smarter.
I mean, that doesn't bother me. Okay, that doesn't bother me. But what concerns me is, and I've said it sort of from the beginning, Jules, is I think what the Ukrainian people have gone through is appalling. I think that Zelensky has been a towering embodiment of strength. Although some of the people who are now supporting him were saying we want the war to end. You just have to, not you. The world just has to understand Donald Trump doesn't give a toss what anybody thinks. He will do anything and everything to get the deal that he thinks is best for the American people, him, and probably his legacy. But there is no doubt that this war's been going on too long. I don't know. People have come on today and they've said Zelensky was in a bad mood. His body language wasn't great. Trump likes having his feathers fluffed, doesn't he? Look at Starmer. Ooh, come and see the king. You're lovely. Fantastic. Lovely. He didn't say like that. He went, come and see the king. Zelensky is a war-torn president of a country that was invaded by an aggressor and probably doesn't want to do that. But the truth of the matter is, if you're giving people billions of dollars, you probably want your feet sort of kissed occasionally. I don't know. But for me, more than any other part, and I feel... You know, I felt sympathy, do feel sympathy for Zelensky. Europe needs to look itself in the mirror and say, whatever we think of Donald Trump, because of him, we're now realising we should defend our bloody island, which we should have done for years. And many governments, starting with Cameron, were responsible. How is Portsmouth today? Nice and sunny?
Yeah, nice and sunny. Yes, very nice.
You been on the beach?
Nice.
Been on the beach?
No, I've been at work.
What do you do?
I'm a bookkeeper.
Are you? Oh.
Yeah.
Bookie. Thanks a lot, love. Take care. Nice to have you on. Thank you. Let's head north to Ipswich. Somebody's put Ipswich in Suffolk. Where would it be? Charles, you're on Talk Drive. A very good evening. How are you?
Good evening. A bit harassed about a hard day, but
why have you had a hard Charles? Why have you had a hard day?
Oh no, I'm self-employed, and you know we have ups and downs. But
well, I'll tell you what you should do. Why don't you become one of the 1 million low-paid workers in the UK? They'll get 80% of their salary for sitting at home and doing bugger all. Why have a business? Give up. Anyway, I won't wind you up.
Like that.
Yeah. What do you want to say, pal?
Well, I want to talk about illegal immigrants. Okay.
Yep.
You know, in this country, so many of them coming in daily. Okay. Now, we have people who are in prison. And when you let them out on early release, you tag them, right? Because they're criminals, right? So why aren't these people who are actually criminals, because they've come in here illegally, why aren't they tagged?
Right, now, for anybody who's appalled, is it right to say, and if it's wrong, I'm going to murder whoever wrote this, are you an immigrant yourself?
I am.
Good. No, the reason I'm saying... I wanted people to know that, because a lot of people will go, oh, that's absolutely outrageous. Why should we tag innocent people? I'll tell you my problem with the whole immigration thing, and you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong. I get picked up every night from the station by this amazing Bangladeshi man who I've got to know as a family friend, and he's got 4 kids, and he came over here 40 years ago with his dad, and his dad always said, you respect this country and you work hard, and he's proud to be British, and he pays his taxes, and I consider him a friend for life. I think he's unbelievable. I think he deserves every piece of success he's got. He is more appalled by the immigration problem because he hasn't taken the mickey out of this country than I am. And I think the reason I wanted to ask you is because when you make an effort and you see people not having to and getting even more, it annoys you, right? It hacks you off.
It certainly do. I've been here longer than the gentleman you're talking about. I came here in 1967 as a child. I've been here 58 years, right? You know, and from the age of 13, I've been working.
Yeah.
You know, a paper round, but that's classed as work.
You stupid man. Why don't you just go on the dot? No, listen, mate, lovely to have you on. And how is sunny Ipswich today?
Best place in the world, my friend.
Ipswich Town fan or Norwich? Ipswich or Norwich?
Sorry?
Ipswich or Norwich fan?
Well, I'm not a football fan, but obviously Ipswich all the way.
Who do you? What fan are you then? If you're not a football fan, what's the matter with you? What sort of fan?
Well, I support my town. Yes, I take a great interest in what's going on.
Good man.
Right, and I love this town. Best town in the country.
You need therapy. Thank you very much indeed. That was Charles in Ipswich, the best town in the country. Lovely to have him on. Andrew is in Halifax. Is that Nova Scotia or somewhere north? How are you, Andrew?
And that's about Jeremy. It's the somewhere north one.
Ah, good to have you on, pal. Couple of minutes. What you got?
Okay, well, I was actually listening to Ian Collins talking about the, Ukraine deal today, and I was driving along the Woodhead Pass in Derbyshire. And can I ask you, Jeremy, when did you last drive on a road in this country? Was it recently?
When did I last drive on a road in this country?
Yeah.
Yesterday. I spent the entire weekend ferrying hundreds of children left, right and centre. I know they're mine, but yes, driving everywhere.
Do you ever drive on the roads and think, what an absolute pigsty this country is? Rubbish at the side of the road. You've got road signs that are broken and never repaired. You know, and I just think to myself, this is looking like a third world country, and I'm sat here driving, listening to millions that are going to be squirreled away on the situation in Ukraine. I mean, Britain looks like a third world society with every passing day more and more. And I'm not talking about the immigration issue. I'm talking about the general state of the place. It's an absolute disgrace.
I'll tell you why I think it's a really interesting call. I think that in so many parts of our being as you know, the UK, we were always, and quite rightly, we would lead the world and help out, and whether it was in conflict or whether it was in care or whether it was in aid, and all of that's fine. But I've been saying this for 3 years since I arrived at this amazing station. That's all well and good when you can afford it and when your own people aren't suffering, and you take that a stage further, which is the country. Our public services are creaking. The standard and quality of so much in this country is on its backside, and the result of that is that millions of people, not just the people at Talk or the lefties, millions of people who will decide who's going to be the next government are saying this and saying this alone, which is, you know what, we might have sympathy about illegal migrants, we might have sympathy about wars that are taking place, but our pensioners are freezing, our veterans are homeless, our roads are utterly rubbish, and we feel that stuff should be done here. And I don't think that's a wrong thing to think, Andrew.
Absolutely.
Good to have you on, my friend. Say hello to Halifax. Thank you so much. 11 minutes to 6 o'clock. 0344 499 1000. I've ditched Sam Ellard, some bit part sports reporter. We got the main man, TalkSport's lead commentator, star of ITV's Dancing on Ice. Sam Matterface is next on Talk Drive. Is that a big enough build up? Push that button. Come on.
as of all of this nonsense seen in the Mail and various people saying we've got to withdraw the state visit, absolute garbage.
Yeah.
As juvenile stupidity, we should be doubling
But wasn't
down.
that a bit of a ridiculous move, though, as well?
What we should be doing is, at the end of the day, the British monarchy is probably the most loved around the world. It's our greatest piece of soft power, and we should be using it as much as we can.
And occasionally the government has shaved a percentage point off what it should be, and hope that we'd all see this as a great boon. But the fares have relentlessly gone up every year. Interestingly, at the same time, I think since 2011 or 2012, is it? The duty on petrol and diesel fuel has not gone up at all.
Right.
So we're cranking up the cost of public transport on the railways, which we say we want people to use more, whilst, favouring
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
7 minutes to 6, push the button, Ames.
Sport Summary on Talk.
Like I said, for a Monday night quality, a very good evening live from the City Ground, Nottingham Forest, Ipswich Town, live in the FA Cup fifth round tonight. Sam Matterface, TalkSport's lead commentator. A very good afternoon. How are you, sir?
And a very good afternoon to you as well. Yeah, welcome to the City Ground, where these two will fight it out for a place in the quarter-finals tonight, live on TalkSport, and a chance to meet Brighton in what has turned out to be a very open looking FA Cup campaign. Lots of teams that don't usually get to FA Cup finals eyeing up a place at Wembley now, Jeremy.
For me, Man United knocked out by Fulham yesterday. Delighted. I mean this. I'd like to see a Palace or a Fulham or a Forest or an Ipswich win the FA Cup. I think there's been a monopoly, and that's the sort of fairy tale thing about the FA Cup. It always was, wasn't it? Even Watford could get to a final and lose 6-0. I'm just saying that because of Ryan. But it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, there have been several instances of teams that have emerged and got to the FA Cup final and haven't quite hit the mark. But I'll remind you of Wigan Athletic in 2013 when they beat the mighty Manchester City with a Ben Watson goal very late in the day. The only problem was they got relegated in the same season as well. So Ipswich, if they do get through tonight, will look to avoid that. Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest also will be hoping that they can continue their good runs in the Premier League and head for a European campaign that way. But there's loads of stories developing around the FA Cup from the weekend, and because of the fact that it is so open. Manchester City will be the big favourites, but Aston Villa will have their eyes on it too.
They've been a bit dodgy the last few weeks, haven't they, Aston Villa? Can I just ask you about Nuno Espirito Santos, the manager of Nottingham Forest? What an incredible job he's done at the City Ground. I mean, laughed out of Spurs, but then so was Mourinho. So was everybody seems to leave Spurs and do all right afterwards. But done a fantastic job with Nottingham Forest, challenging, third in the Premier League? Astonishing season, really.
And fostered a brilliant team spirit here, has got Chris Wood scoring goals. If you look at Chris Wood's statistics between the first time he walked through the door at Nottingham Forest and how he has performed since Nuno Espirito Santo came to the club, the numbers are through the roof. He's literally set the world alight. He's having his best ever Premier League goal scoring season this season. I don't think he'll play tonight, but he's done a brilliant job in shaping this squad and utilising some key talents. They don't really like the football that much. They like to sit back, let somebody else have a go at them and then look to counter-attack. But when they do, they counter-attack brilliantly. You've got Morgan Gibbs-White, who's now played for England, Hudson-Odoi, you've got Elanga, all those players that have a huge amount of speed on the break.
Hudson-Odoi for £5 million. What a buy that is. Anthony Elanga, £7 million from Manchester United. Extraordinary. And actually, that scattergun approach, they bought 100 players and spent all that. He's managed to just get that down to a group that plays really well. Haven't got a lot of time. I want to talk to you about something. I just thought this was, I couldn't believe this. I don't know anybody listening. The Millwall goalkeeper, Liam Roberts, could quite rightly, in my mind, face further punishment. The challenge against John Philippe Mateta from Crystal Palace on Saturday, 11 minutes in. I mean, Eric Cantona was banned for about 100 games. I think that's one of the most outrageous and dreadful tackles I've ever seen. I'd have him banned for I thought it was appalling, Sam, thoughts?
Yeah, I think that sometimes we get caught up in the emotion of it. We can get sort of irate about it in the heat of the moment, the speed of the game. I think you've got to understand that there are going to be incidents that happen like this. This is a one-off. This is something that cannot happen. This is an incident that is far too. It's far too violent, really. I mean,
25 stitches in his head, could have had a fractured skull. Both feet off the ground. Terrible.
Lifts, I mean, he's clearing the football when he clears the football first, but if you look at the way he extends his leg up in the air afterwards, you just think it's unnecessary. It's not something that's required. It needs to be, I think, there needs to be some sort of punishment that sort of deters anybody else from getting involved in a similar sort of situation.
Do you think they'll throw the book at him? Do you think they'll throw the book at him?
I'm almost certain that they'll do that, because it was an horrific challenge, and Mateta ended up, as you say, with serious injuries. I don't think it's something that we should have spiced up as much as maybe some did on Saturday lunchtime. But at the same time, I do think we need to serve a warning to everybody else that you can't do things like that. I mean, I don't know what yoga he's been doing to get his foot up that high, but it's unnecessary, really, for a goalkeeper to come out and challenge in that manner for the ball. If he really wanted to challenge that high up for it, he probably should have used his head.
And to be fair, you say spice it up in the media. Steve Parish, I've never known him so outspoken. The Palace chairman is quite a calm individual. By half-time, he was ranting big time. I mean, Mateta's been a man reborn under Oliver Glasner. I mean, he was hopeless, wasn't he, before under Roy Hodgson? And he's scoring goals for fun. I don't think you can over exaggerate how bad that was. I really don't.
It was a terrible challenge, but I don't think that. I think in that sort of circumstance, it was difficult for Steve, because Steve's there at half-time, he's giving an interview, he's asked about an incident, he's worried about the player that's gone off to hospital. At that time, he doesn't know what's going on, so he's a little bit more emotional maybe than he would be if in the cold light of day giving a verdict 2-3 hours later on. There's no doubt that it's a terrible challenge. There's no doubt that Liam Roberts is going to get an extended ban, I don't think. And the other thing is that sometimes in the FA Cup you think, well, is this a young goalkeeper who's been put in? Is it someone who hasn't played very often? This is a guy who's 30 years of age and played a lot of football. Look, he should know better.
FA Cup tonight. So, from the City Ground, Nottingham Forest, Ipswich. You're of course, you're the lead commentator. We've got, not Sam Ellard, some bit part. We've got the main man. We'll have a prediction from you then, please, Mr. M.
Well, I think Nottingham Forest probably have too much for Ipswich tonight, who have got their eyes on trying to secure a Premier League place for next season. They might well be encouraged in that quest, bearing in mind Matthias Cunha is going to be banned for Wolverhampton Wanderers over the next couple of weeks as well, maybe longer than that. So I think they'll be concentrating on the Premier League, and Nottingham Forest will feel this could be their time.
Good man. Listen, great to have you on, Sam. I know you're a busy man. Talk Sport, the home of all live football tonight. Nottingham Forest, Ipswich, with Sam and the team on Talk Sport from 7 o'clock. It's almost 6. More calls, more guests, and more on Drive Time. After the news at 6 next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Final hour of Drive for Monday afternoon. We'll have across the UK on the 3rd of March. Talk, have a free speech and common sense, and never eat a rich tea biscuit, which is drier than the bottom of a parrot's cage, and you're about to speak on national radio. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Loads of texts. Good God. David, hello. Jez, I just wish this bloody government would protect our borders as much as they protect Ukraine's. We need to stop piling money into a war that cannot be won and win the one on our own shores. I have to say, lots of people going down that line. Steve Chandler, when is a ceasefire good or bad? The same people who are now attacking Trump for wanting a ceasefire are the very same people yelling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Also, the White House turnout the other day is a perfect example of people being more upset about hurty words. There's more outrage about that than when Donald Trump got shot. That from Steve Chandler. Rachel, do you think Churchill would have caved in and surrendered? Totally support Trump on many things, but he's got the Ukraine situation wrong. Zelensky is as brave as all of his people put together. Interesting. Joanna from Salisbury, hello. I disagree with your caller, Paul. I went to Ukraine and Georgia in 78. None of them consider themselves Russian, the same as East Germany. They just ended up behind the Iron Curtain when World War II ended without choice. This just breaking news, by the way, on Sky. The Pope has had 2 episodes of acute respiratory failure. We'll keep an eye on that. That's breaking news. Jeremy, who came to the aid of the US from Europe under NATO Article 5 after 9/11? UK. Who else? Absolutely. Chris is in Newbury. Tell John Redwood that the Tories spent 14 years thinking plastic straws were more dangerous to the UK than the bloody Russians. What a shower of clowns. You try saying that. That was nearly bad. Jeremy, why do you think it should be done in private? Trump has always been transparent, and this took place in America for the American people to see. As Trump quoted, he wanted his people to see, that's why he did it. It might offend people in the rest of the world. He doesn't give an arse. No, he doesn't. Bill from Romsey, it's a funny old world. Trump shouts at Zelensky. Labour MP beats up a man in the street. What's worse to the British people? Wow. Jez, don't know the name. I, for one, am encouraged that America is moving away from Europe. We will now be less likely to be the chessboard of nuclear exchange that NATO has always ever really been on about. What? Europe is big enough to stand on its own 2 feet. And finally, for now, Jill, the Corbyn-run left-wing group Stop the War are now in the bizarre position of supporting President Trump. Whilst not admitting it, their policies are now aligned with the president. When all the hand-wringing is finished, people realise how clever he is at getting things done. Mike in Staffordshire, OK. Great show. I've never seen a show where you're involved where it hasn't been truthful and fair. To the point that was made about Elon not wearing a suit, I have to say that Elon doesn't represent America as its leader, nor is he any kind of official government representative. Zelensky is a prime minister. No, he isn't. He's a president. He should dress and act like one. Cheers. Cheers, mate, or is he on the M8? I don't think there is an M8. 0344 499 1000. I'm feeling slightly naughty today. I don't even know why. What's wrong with me? Must be my age. This is the last March, Jode, of not being 60. To have my... Do you know what one of my friends said that they're getting me for my birthday? A bus pass. Do you think that's funny, Jodie? I like buses. I just don't like the idea that they stop to pick other people up and drop other people off, so I won't be doing that. 0344 499 1000. We are delighted on a Monday to welcome a lady who is, quality. Beyond quality. Rare to get her anymore. Isabel Oakeshott, our international editor at Talk. Hello.
Oh, where do I begin with this? I want to know.
You don't look 60, Jez.
Why are you eating rich tea biscuits? That is no way for a nearly 60-year-old to live his full and best life. What's that all about?
All right, my life is boring, so if you were here with me, what would I be eating?
Well, a lavish chocolate biscuit with a lot of chocolate on it. More chocolate than biscuit. Definitely not a rich tea. Who even does that? That is you showing your age. It is.
Brilliant.
Sorry.
And also, what you don't know is, whilst I'm dunking that, I bring them to the studio now, and people have got my slippers on. What do you think of that?
Have you got a blanket as well over your knee?
Yeah, only in case I dribble. Anyway, listen, great. It's so good to have you on. I just want to, because you've always been straight with me, I just want to say to you what I said 2 hours ago. Everybody getting their knickers in a twist about what happened in the Oval Office. It wasn't palatable. It probably should have happened in private. But that last message was, I think, spot on, that it was for the American people by Trump. My bigger concern, not concern, my bigger point is that it has taken Donald Trump 5 weeks to get Europe and the United Kingdom, and I'm not talking about Starmer, I'm talking about successive Tory governments and beyond that, who systematically saw the cut of anything to do with our military and defence as the easy option, knowing that Uncle Sam would always come a-running. It's taken him 5 weeks to get our Prime Minister and most of Europe scurrying around going, oh, we better cut the foreign aid budget and spend some money on defending ourselves because America's not going to do it anymore. And then everybody goes, that's unfair. No, it isn't. Trump can spend his bloody money on what he wants. I don't like a lot about Donald Trump, and I don't like what happened with Zelensky. But I have to tell you something. If you are in this country and you want stronger defence and you want less spent on foreign aid, you should be congratulating Donald Trump, in my mind. Isabel, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think that you can hold a number of positions on this without being in any way hypocritical. Yeah. I found that scene in the White House very hard to watch, and actually I played it to my teenage daughter saying, this is a moment in history, you know, this is an absolute watershed, this encounter. And she said she really didn't want to watch it. It became uncomfortable for her, you know, and that's just a kind of human reaction to the spectacle, because it was a spectacle of one man being frankly bullied and publicly humiliated by 2 others. So you can really abhor that on the one hand, and on the other recognize that the American taxpayers' patience isn't infinite, and that they have a far less of a motivation to keep this damn war going than those of us in Europe who want to make sure that Putin doesn't try. Not only does he not get away with this one, but that he doesn't try it on the Baltic states and wherever else he might fancy expanding his sphere of influence. So I think that it's you can admire aspects of the outcome of this. As you said, you know, the outcome in the short term is that finally Trump has concentrated lazy minds and complacent minds in EU member states and indeed in the UK on the need for properly funded defence. And, you know, we're talking about adding a little bit extra of GDP on defence. It's nowhere near enough to get up to a fully fighting force of the type that our defence chiefs would want. But sure, it's a hell of a lot more than we would have got if the, you know, lefty hand-wringers had their way, you know, banging on about the need to carry on funding, you know, lesbian dance troopers in Ethiopia or whatever else.
There you go, lesbian dance. Right, let's leave Trump. Because I want to get your take on so much, Isabel Oakeshott. Just to repeat that news, Ryan's looking into it. Apparently the Pope has had 2 episodes of acute respiratory failure. That just in from the Vatican. We'll keep you updated. 0344 499 1000. Do you know what today was, Isabel Oakeshott?
What, is it the day before your birthday or something?
My birthday's not till July. I'm into the big build-up.
What? You can't be building it up already. How many presents do you want?
As many as you're prepared to give me. Yesterday, Channel crossings hit a new yearly high, we discovered today. Nearly 600 illegal migrants arrived from war-torn France yesterday, where they had to escape because there were tanks on the beach. Oh, no, that wasn't then. Sunny weather saw a surge in small boats over the weekend, just days after that very impressive Home Secretary Yvette Cooper pledged millions more to tackle smuggling gangs. More have come since Labour Party came into power. The gangs have not been controlled. We're still giving France £500 million a year to seemingly do absolutely bugger all because they haven't built a detention centre. Nobody said... The foreign... What does he know? The sort of shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, I never get his name right, he's saying, oh, maybe we should bring Rwanda back. I just have a question for you. You're our international editor. Forget reform a minute. Why do these politicians, do they not want to sort this? Because I don't know why this is so difficult. We're so stuck on doing what's right for everybody else. We're not doing what's right for the British people, are we?
I was talking about this morning with Mike Graham. I mean, it's such a hard sell for voters to hear the Prime Minister, you know, taking the moral high ground. He's there up there. He's not just on a high horse. He's on the master of all stallions, galloping along, acting as if he's, you know, the high priest of rectitude in terms of protecting the sovereignty of borders. And meanwhile, you know, we've got a small army. Frankly, cumulatively, it's going to end up being a lot bigger than our actual army of people coming over on these small boats. And so far from detaining them, we give them warm blankets, cups of tea, and basically a metaphoric checkbook, and then accommodate them in nice hotels for months on end before we inevitably rubber stamp their leave to remain on whatever spurious grounds they've cobbled together with the help of human rights lawyers, most of whom are also milking the public purse. It is absolutely horrendous. I can't understand why this government and the one before it didn't realise what an easy political win it would be.
That's exactly what I said earlier. I don't know. Politicians must spend their entire lives hoping to move the dial and create something that the British people would say, do you know what? He was responsible for that. And there's this sort of drudgery. I remember a politician saying to me once, I won't name them, Saida Wasi, before she... Anyway, she said to me, the thing is, you go into politics, Jeremy, and you have such aspiration, then you get enshrined in the machinations of government or Whitehall, and you just vote, and you can't make a difference. But for me, I look at this and I think, no, you could really make a difference. And you make a really salient point. I mean... Keir Starmer has, in 3 days, shown himself to be quite prime ministerial. Let's be perfectly honest. Let's just park that there. He has. He also showed himself after those riots, before he called everybody far right, to be quite good to cut down on law and order, because his police force, which didn't exist, was suddenly on the streets arresting people, trying people and throwing people in jail, all on camera, when there weren't any police or jail cells and a justice system that didn't work. So there are two occasions of when he's done stuff. So why the bloody hell doesn't somebody say to him, it would make great political sense and capital if you close the borders and stop these bloody people coming in and destroying our public services for the British people who need them. That's it.
It's literally the easiest and biggest and simplest win they could possibly do politically. But remember, this guy is a human rights lawyer. He's absolutely seeped in this stuff. All his friends are that type of person. They're all hand-wringing lefty lawyers. And he's made a whole career out of that before becoming a not very good prime minister. So I think it's just too difficult for him to get his head around the idea of doing something that is risky in
risky in terms of what? Risky in terms of the different factions of his party not loving him, because look at Ukraine. You could argue that 2 years ago, the Labour Party would not have supported a war in Ukraine under Corbyn, would they, or 4 years ago, or whatever. So one wonders if, I don't know, I don't understand. I'm so with you why there isn't an appetite to score the easiest open goal in British political history, which is we're going to close the borders and we're going to turn the boats back.
Well, basically because they are terrified of all those people that Keir Starmer was glad-handing yesterday and lining up for the family photos with the EU member state leaders. All those people would be going, oh, you can't do that. Now you've broken some international treaty, and now you're not just Brexit, but you're now international pariahs. It's all a load of rubbish, as you and I both know. But people like Keir Starmer and his ilk care about the judgment of others like them. You know, you and I care more about what the actual voters think.
Yeah.
You know,
the British public. Oh, surprise, surprise. Break there. I want to take a call because I love doing calls with you. We're going to go to Essex. It's a new caller. Jason, you're on Talk Drive, and Isabel Oakeshot's with me. Whereabouts in Essex?
I'm in Romford, Jeremy. Yeah.
Good dog track. Anyway, what you got?
It's just about the Zelensky and Trump spat, really. I've watched that video now 2 or 3 times, and every time I watch it, Zelensky irritates me a bit more. He kind of, within 5 minutes of that interview starting, he starts to pull out photos, which is really he's gone into propaganda mode almost immediately in front of the world's press. He then gets asked a question about his suit, about not wearing a suit, about 12 minutes in. And he responds to the person who asked the question saying, well, maybe I'll wear one next time, maybe not, maybe it will be like yours, maybe it will be more expensive. So he's gone straight into confrontational mode again.
It's a stupid quote. I don't give a... Can I just say, I'm listening to everything you're saying, but I don't give a toss about whether he's wearing a suit or not. I can't be doing with that.
No, it's not, but it's just the way he answered. You know, he could have said, well, I'll wear one when the war's over. Very simple.
Do we believe then that actually, in essence, what you're saying is that he didn't show the necessary... Let's paint the picture of Starmer, who went, oh, there's an invite from the King to a state visit. Is Trump the sort of egotist who wants everybody to fawn over him? Is that what you're saying, Jason?
Well, not really, because it kind of gets worse than that. Because on about 18 minutes, Trump actually puts his arm around Zelensky and makes a joke about the suit thing. And basically says, I used two friends, and laughs and puts his arms around him, trying to diffuse the situation. And then it kind of continues for another 12 minutes where there's no direct dialogue between either of the two teams because they're answering questions from the press. And then one of the press asks the Vance question, which says, what makes you feel that a peace deal can succeed this time? And that's when Vance says diplomacy, because we've tried the chest thumping and that good stuff. And then Zelensky goes off for another two or three minutes, kind of Ukraine-splaining to Vance, saying that basically the USA and the world hasn't done enough, and then says kind of what kind of diplomacy. So that kind of interaction between the two teams was none of that was happening before Zelensky challenged Vance.
Do you understand? And I'll put Isabel on the tick. Isabel said, and I agree with her, it was really unpalatable. It didn't look great. For me, I'm trying desperately to think about the bigger picture, which is I'm genuinely truthful when I say that the one thing Trump has managed to do is galvanise Europe into rearming itself, which is actually really important. Isabel, what do you make of what Jason's saying?
Well, I mean, the point about what Zelensky was wearing, I don't think I've ever seen him out of his, his war gear, as it were, and that's just his thing. And I don't think it would have almost been weird for him to dress up in a suit to see Trump, because he hasn't done it for anyone else. So I don't think I thought that was inappropriate of Trump to make that comment. But I think that there's so much more about Zelensky that doesn't fit into he's a war hero, he's the most incredible, brave man on earth. There is a whole other dimension to how Zelensky is treating his opponents within Ukraine that is not talked about at all in our country or amongst the kind of, the establishment that just want a hero. They want everything to be black and white. They want Putin bad, which he is, and Zelensky good, which actually he kind of isn't. And people don't really want to delve into that, but there is very, very disturbing evidence of how he treats his critics, shuts down, anybody who dares question the way he's going about things, crushes all dissent. That is dictator behavior. And whilst I would hesitate to call him dictator in the way that Trump did and in that context, this isn't just a binary good versus bad situation without any nuance at all about what kind of person Zelensky is, also away from the cameras.
Jason, just to sum it up.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that, and I think that kind of not his way or no way kind of come to the surface, really. He was I would implore anyone that's listening to watch that whole interview from start to finish and watch his body language, the way he reacts to any kind of question that he doesn't like.
Maybe it's a classic tale, says the man in his slippers approaching his 60th birthday, of two alpha males with big egos just kicking off against each other. Jace, really appreciate your calls. A new caller from Essex, good to have you on. Isabel, lovely to have you on. Ryan, I need to ask one final thing. Isabel, have you seen this report today? Britain is paying almost £180,000 an hour to switch off wind farms because there's nowhere for the excess power to go. So-called constraint payments, where turbines are switched off to help balance the grid, have already cost £252 million in the first 2 months of 2025. Honest to God, woman, what's happening?
It's just more net zero nightmare, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, if ever there was an illustration of the absolute folly of this stuff, it is that. And sometimes people don't really they don't think of public money as something that meaningful, you know. But just think about that in terms of your tax, the amount that you see going out of your paycheck every month. You know, you look and you see how much you would have got if the government hadn't taken its slice of the cake, and then think of that donation that you make every month just being chucked down the drain like this. And
actually, that's a bit. I worked it out. It's £1.5 billion a year, which more than adequately covers many times the cut that they were going to make to old age pensioners' fuel allowances in the winter. It's just all about priority.
You'll be thinking about soon, right?
Brilliant. Good way to
It's become personal for you now, hasn't it? The old age pensioners' fuel allowance.
Will you push me around after July in my bath chair? Will you do that?
Oh, I think I might be mistaken for your carer already if we're seen together too often.
Brilliant. OK, that's great. Well, that's just ruined my evening. That's my carer, Isabel Oakeshott. Great to have you on, sweetheart. Thank you so much indeed. Yes, she'll be making sure the blanket fits after July the 7th. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. This is interesting. This is from Lee. Let's start a campaign. Mike Graham might have bumper stickers. I might want stickers, but this is what we're going to do. Ryan, look at me. Get your head up. Lee says, why don't we all stop buying French wine until those stop facilitating the small boats? That's a very good idea. Let's stop buying French wine. This is Talk Drive.
And occasionally the government has shaved a percentage point off what it should be and hope that we'd all see this as a great boon. But the fares have relentlessly gone up every year. Interestingly, at the same time, I think since 2011 or 2012, is it, the duty on petrol and diesel fuel has not gone up at all. Right. So we're cranking up the cost of public transport on the railways, which we say we want people to use more, whilst, you know, favouring road transport. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
As of all of this nonsense seen in the Mail and various people saying that we've got to withdraw the state visit, absolute garbage. Yeah. As juvenile stupidity, we should be doubling down.
But wasn't that a bit of a ridiculous move, though, as well?
What we should be doing is, at the end of the day, the British monarchy is probably the most loved around the world. It's our greatest piece of soft power, and we should be using it as much as we can.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25, live across the UK. Hello to me old mucker Sir Jake Berry, former chairman of the Tory party. Listening, you see, quality, we've got to get him on. He owes me dinner. 0344 499... hold on a second. Oh, brilliant. Sorry, reading my phone. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. Text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Hello to Michelle. You're swell. I don't even know why I did it. I'm just feeling slightly fruity. It's my last March the 3rd in my 50s. Jez, why does Zelensky walk around dressed like he's actually fighting the war, wearing sweats or doing propaganda to his military gear? He's the president, not on the front line. He's an actor. Michelle, with respect, I think he's always done that. Oh, my God, I've just read something. And I think he shows solidarity with his soldiers. That's what he says. Now, if you tune into the greatest breakfast show in the history of British broadcasting, Morning Glory with Mike Graham, they're giving away bumper stickers, which are stickers to put on the back of your car, saying you're listening to talk and it's Mike's face and it's amazing. Steve Chalmers says, as it's your 60th birthday soon, why don't we get some mobility I can't even say it. Mobility scooter stickers and some bus part wallets made up by talk. Bus pass wallets and some I can't say it, I give up. Anyway, Steve Chandler, bugger off. 03444. See, I did that deliberately. See, that wasn't even anywhere, never mind. 03444 419 1000, text to 87222, 628. Let's cross now to former US diplomat and foreign policy advisor for the Republican leadership in the US Senate. This will be interesting. Jim Jatras. Jim, a very good evening, sir. How are you?
Hey, Jeremy, how you doing? Good to be here.
Great to have you on. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. I think that was the wrong face, but there we go. That's the way it goes.
It's the right face.
Oh, good. Jim, help me out. Many people in this country jumping up and down about what happened in the Oval Office last Friday. Many people saying it was unpalatable, it was bullying. I'll try and make this as brief as I can. I've said quite a lot. There are many things about Donald Trump that I don't like, but there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that in 5 short weeks, he has galvanised the United Kingdom and Europe into understanding that the Americans are no longer going to wipe our backsides and continue to spend billions on defending Europe when this country and plenty of others in Europe have put that on the back burner over the years. Now, from an American point of view, that will have gone down very well, won't it?
I suppose it would. I mean, successive U.S. presidents have complained about burden sharing, that Europeans don't spend any money, they rely on us. But the bottom line here, Jeremy, is this. Trump said to Zelensky, you don't hold any cards. And the fact is, the Europeans are talking about putting boots on the ground, planes in the air in Ukraine, and they don't hold any cards either. They can't do that without backstopping from the United States. And they can talk about investing more in their military. That will take years, if not decades, to make any appreciable difference. So the fact is, Zelensky, I don't know what his theory was. You know, Starmer and Macron tried to schmooze Trump a little bit. They didn't get what they wanted from him, but they didn't shut all the doors either. Zelensky, maybe he thought he could go in there and read the riot act to Trump, and Trump would back down. Or maybe his goal was simply to do what you said, to galvanize opinion in Europe. Where that gets him at the end of the day, I don't know. Because unless there's a ceasefire that the Russians agree to, and unless the Americans agree to back the Europeans up, there is no European force going in on the ground in Ukraine.
What happens in America since Friday? We know that the American people are split between people who think he's a god and people who think he should be, put in prison forever. There's never been any middle ground with Donald Trump, but he won the popular vote and he won that extraordinary election in November. Are they proud that he stuck up for America? Are they embarrassed by what they saw? What's the view on the street, Jim?
Well, it's exactly as you said. It's highly polarized, and it's even more polarized because of this meeting. The people who love Trump think he's great. They don't think we should be involved in this Ukraine war anymore. They don't think much of Zelensky. Frankly, I think Zelensky's sell-by date has long since passed. I'd be surprised if he's still around on May 1st.
Really?
So I think things are changing. I think I think the Europeans are trying to put up a brave face on this, but they have no place to go either. And I think you see the same sort of a split of opinion in Europe too. Your caller seems to be sympathizing with Trump, that I heard a minute ago. But then again, you look at all the smart and beautiful people who actually run these governments, and they're all appalled, and they're all on Zelensky's side.
Do you believe you were, a diplomat, a foreign policy advisor to the Republican leadership in the Senate? What did you personally make of what you saw on Friday, and what's your view of where it will lead?
I think the big question is that I don't know the answer to. Does Trump want to improve relations with the Russians as kind of a reverse Kissinger, where he can get the Russians on side so we can go gang up on the Chinese? Or does he actually want to move toward a multipolar world where there will be defined spheres of influence where we don't step on each other's toes? Where basically the Russians, the Americans, the Chinese, we have our different spheres in the world. We'll work out something for the Europeans, but we can move to a more peaceful world. Or are we looking at just shifting the quest for global dominance in great power competition? I don't know the answer to that yet.
The interesting thing about Donald Trump is, and there's many interesting things, is that he, of course, only has 4 years. He cannot stand again. He seems, by anybody's standards, Jim, to be a man in a hurry. So much of what he's doing... I mean, I think, actually, I'd like to ask you, as a former policy advisor, when I watched it, apart from when my mouth dropped open, and then I watched it again, I thought Trump initially was quite calm. I think he got the bait because J.D. Vance and Zelensky were going at each other and jabbing fingers. Vance, again, I guess, is a polarising figure. The Trump supporters will love him and see as an extension in 4 years. Other people will think, geez, much more of the same, right?
That would be the idea. Now, as you say, a man in a hurry. Remember, American elections are perpetual. The Republicans have a razor-thin majority in both houses. So he very well could find himself neutered 2 years from now, depending on which way the congressional elections go. So, yeah, he is in a hurry. What he's in a hurry to do exactly is not quite clear, but whatever it is, it's going to be very forceful and filled with his personality.
Do you, as an American person, prefer that to what you had before under Biden, or does it scare you? I'm interested because we've all got an opinion over here, and it's easy to sit on these sort of shows and go, he said he'd make America great again, and he's defending American people and saying you shouldn't spend that money and I'm going to look after you. And then there's the other people going, oh my God. I read a quote from somebody at the Oscars who said it was the most embarrassing part of their lives forever. You'd understand that about Hollywood, that polarisation. What about you, my friend?
Put me in the first camp, obviously. I'm an America firster. I want what's good for the United States, but I don't mean necessarily bullying other countries. I think everybody should be a patriot for his own country. That's why I despise people like Starmer, Macron, and Schultz, and all the rest of them who don't give a damn about the people in their own country.
And you see that, and I'm so glad you said that, because I've sat here day in, day out. When Starmer is pontificating, as he has, Jim, in the last couple of days, a coordination of willingness, and I'm going to help this happen. Well, hold on a second. You've got your borders are open, and there are people in this country. You're screwing pensioners, the veterans, the army veterans are on the street homeless. The one thing that I think about Trump, which doesn't go down very well in this country sometimes, is he doesn't care who criticises him. He stood for his people. That's what you're going to do. Like it or lump it. If you don't like it, I'll do one. But you did, and that's what I'm going to do. And he's not interested in criticism. Many of our politicians are a bit weak. Jim, great to have you on as ever, my friend. I know you've got another interview. We'll let you go. Thank you very much indeed. Former US diplomat and foreign policy advisor to the Senate leadership, the Republican leadership in the Senate. That is Jim Jatras. Thank you very much indeed to him. 7:25. Kev's here. Is Kev here, or is it for... I'm joking. Kev is here from 7 o'clock tonight. The Asylum. His asylum, a place that only he can frequent, is here from 7 o'clock. Don't give it a miss. What? Don't miss it. I know what I'm trying to say. Petri Hoskins here from 10 o'clock. If you want to be on in the next 25 minutes, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Calls in a tick right now. Oh, this is a story and a half. Oh my God. David Turver is the energy analyst and the author of the Egan Value Substack. I don't know what that means. I've no idea. David, welcome to Talk Drive. David?
Hi, good to meet you, Jeremy.
Oh, good. Author of the what?
The Egan Value Substack.
They didn't tell me what that meant. Listen, you're going to be a man after my own heart. Thank you for coming on. This breaking news, well, I say breaking news, it was in the news today, sort of thing that sends me at nearly 60, yes, I know, don't look it, through the roof. Britain, ready for this, all you people out there who love net zero? Britain is paying almost £180,000 an hour. Can I just repeat that? Britain is paying almost 180 grand an hour to switch off wind farms because there's nowhere for the excess power to go. So-called constraint payments, where turbines are switched off to help balance the grid, have already cost the British taxpayer, David, £252 million in the first 2 months of 2025. The revelation adds to the concerns about the state of the UK's creaking power grid, as Ed Miliband, the scariest politician in the world, energy secretary and man who can't eat a bacon sandwich, pushes forward with an unprecedented expansion of wind and solar farms across the country. David, that's £1.5 billion a year to turn things off that don't generate enough electricity. So you're the expert. I'm going to give you a theory. Tell me if I'm an idiot. So this government brings in a land grab tax to screw farmers so they can grab the land, build wind farms and fulfil their destiny to be net zero by I'll be dead, I don't care. But in the meantime, it's not going to create enough electricity, so we'll have to import it from another country, which will put people's bills up. But now we've got a story whereby we do have too much and we turn them off and that costs us more money. It's a joke, man, isn't it? The whole thing's a joke.
It's absolutely absurd. I mean, imagine if you run a factory and you made widgets, and then I was a customer and said, well, actually, I don't need your widgets today, but the government will pay you not to produce widgets. It's a sort of like Soviet style sort of 5-year plan tractor production thing. It's absolutely ridiculous. But actually, that's only part of the story. So that's only sort of like one half of the payments, and they go up and down. But the other half is that if the grid's congested and we can't take on that wind power, we need to fire up a gas-fired power station somewhere else in the country so that the lights stay on. So overall, that's called balancing costs. And broadly speaking, they cost about £2.5 billion a year. Then we pay another $1 billion for what's called a capacity market to back up the grid. So we've got things ready on standby if the wind suddenly drops or the sun sets or whatever. And even those are small in comparison to the overall subsidies that we pay for the renewables. So there's 3 schemes. There's something called the Renewables Obligation Contract. We pay about $7 billion for them. There's Contracts for Difference, which is the latest scheme. We pay about $2.5 billion for them. And then there's something called feed-in tariffs, which is mostly solar on people's roofs or in the gardens or something. And we pay about $1.9 billion for those.
Can I say
all these costs?
Can I say the obvious thing at the risk of sounding like some Neanderthal man? So our pensioners are freezing to death, 4,000 of them, Labour's own figures. Our veterans are on the street. Our farmers risk losing farms that have been in their family for hundreds and hundreds of years. Our NHS is on its arse. Our borders are open, which is causing our public services to creak. And we're spending billions on something that's not going to do anything other than tick boxes for green freaks whilst increasing the cost of our energy bills.
Yeah, that's true. And as you mentioned, Miliband earlier, his plan for Clean Power 2030 is to spend between 260 and 290 billion on that plan, which is absolutely staggering. And if you do the sums, we spend about £8 billion a year on gas for electricity, and he wants to save about 7 of it. So we're going to spend, roughly speaking, 280 billion to save 7 billion a year. It's
Why is
crazy.
it that you and I can have this conversation? People tuning in could text me as they are now saying £180,000 a year to switch off wind, an hour to switch. And we're both sort of, mine's shock. You've got a permanent smile on your face because you've been dealing with this stuff. Why are politicians so mad and so obsessed with something that's going to cost so much and affect the lives of British people detrimentally? What's wrong with these people?
Well, I think it's because most of them are innumerate, and they can't add up, and they feel as though they're saving the planet, but our emissions are 0.8% of the global total. So whatever we do is a rounding error, and it's not going to do anything for the planet. We'd be much better off adopting a sort of like gas to nuclear strategy.
So if you said, all right, so imagine you're David Miliband, and I'm saying, Ed Miliband, is it? And I'm saying to you, listen, Ed, this is all very wonderful and moral and well thought out. Well, it's not well thought out, it's crap, isn't it? But basically, you're going to spend billions of pounds we haven't got achieving something that isn't achievable. As I said, to the detriment of your own people. This is becoming, or appearing to be, an obsession of various politicians and governments across Europe. But if you are, by the way, Mr. Miliband, in any way interested about whether you're going to be re-elected in Doncaster South next time, go and ask your constituents. Go and ask millions of people in this country who might acknowledge, let's be honest, David, that there, is a need at some point. I'll be dead. I don't care. I'm not bothered. And I'm being completely serious. Forgive me for sounding so, wrong about it, but it's how I feel. I just think we've got far more going on right now in this country that needs dealing with. And people can shoot me down in flames, but I would rather that we looked after veterans and pensioners and farmers, and we did something about the NHS. I don't want 7 million people unable to get a doctor's appointment. I think we get our priorities wrong. And for me, this whole net green obsession, the priorities are totally and utterly wrong, because nobody can say, right, this will give this and that, it will save there. It's costing billions of pounds for nothing, it seems. And that, in terms of a business sense, forget the morality of your own people, is a ludicrous decision to be in.
Absolutely. I would say it's pretty much an existential threat to the country. So, chemicals industries collapsing, the steel industry collapsing, all the energy intensive industries are, on their knees. Yet, Starmer wants to increase defence spending to, fend off whatever's happening in Eastern Europe. But if we can't make steel, we can't make armoured vehicles, and if we can't make chemicals, we can't make munitions. It really is that simple. And we've lost fertiliser plants as well. So we're.
How did we get to this point, David? You're the expert. How did we get to this point in your mind that there are so many people, it seems, and Boris Johnson was one of them. I'm not sticking up for him, who seem to think that this is so important and can't seem to fathom or understand that by implementing any part of it, you are going to affect millions of people in this country and their livelihoods.
Indeed. I don't know. I think it's a mixture of stupidity and vanity, really. I mean, the idea of sort of like Saudi Arabia wind is just completely crazy.
Yeah.
Because of course, Saudi Arabia can pump, 10 million barrels of oil a day or whatever, reliably, but wind can never produce power reliably.
But that's the other thing. Underneath, what did Trump say? Drill, baby, drill, and everybody laughed. Underneath the ground, we've got millions of pounds worth of oil, billions of oil and gas. Why wouldn't we get that out, use it and sell it and make money, rather than this mad approach to cost ourselves billions to just basically increase people's bills? It's crazy.
I'm totally with you. Trump declared an energy emergency, but America's already the largest oil producer in the world. It's our country that needs the energy emergency. Our energy consumption is falling. Our prices are sky high. We need to take a pretty strong grip of this and have our own energy emergency and lift the fracking ban, take the taxes off it, and so on. So we've got cheap, abundant energy.
I'm gonna leave you with this thought, because I'm gonna have you on. I think you're amazing, because you've got a slightly cynical view, which I love. The government, and this is, I've just been given this, so I don't even, even I can't say this with a straight face. There was a trial announced last week by the Energy Secretary's Department, and we'd like to ask your response. This is true, ladies and gentlemen, just as you're struggling home through the traffic, you're paying lots of tax, your energy bills are going through the roof. What do you make of wind turbines in the future being painted black to stop birds dying? David Turver. Honestly, I'm gonna have to give up and headbutt the wall. Is that true, Ryan? We're going to paint bloody wind turbines black to stop birds dying. Forget pensioners, they're fine. Birds we're worried about. David, please save me.
I saw that too. I've got no idea whether it will make an impact or not. I mean, it is true that they kill a lot of raptors, big birds, and they're not too good for the offshore ones. Aren't too good for the mammals, the whales and the dolphins, because all the vibrations send their sonar off. So, I mean, that is the odd thing, is that wind and solar are not actually particularly good for the environment. It takes tons and tons of minerals to either make them or make the foundations for them or whatever, and then when they're up, particularly the turbines, that they're not good for bird life and so on. Whereas we're supposed to be caring about biodiversity.
I'm going to wear a black shirt tomorrow to avoid the audience dying. David, thank you very much indeed. You're a legend. David Turver, energy analyst, as cynical as I am about net zero. So we're going to paint the studio black tomorrow. I'm going to wear all black as the audience is dying. This is Talk Drive.
war starts to grow there, it will impact, and it's impacting on us already. Daily, we are attacked by Russia in the grey zone, whether it's been those cables in the English Channel, or whether it's cyber attacks and so on, disinformation, coercion. It is happening and going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's a real war in Ukraine, and if that fire isn't put out, it will spread. So
why have they only started talking about it in the last 4 days then?
I don't know why. But
well, you should know. You used to be chair of the Select Committee.
As of all of this nonsense seen in the Mail and various people saying that we've got to withdraw the state visit, absolute garbage.
Yeah.
As juvenile stupidity, we should be doubling down.
But wasn't that a bit of a ridiculous move, though, as well?
What we should be doing is, at the end of the day, the British monarchy is probably the most loved around the world. It's our greatest piece of soft power, and we should be using it as much as we can.
What will it cost Europe? What will it cost the United States? And if the answer is no, we have to look at what that...
Across across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
At 8 minutes to 7 o'clock. Kev is here from 7 o'clock with the political asylum. Petri Hoskins from 10 o'clock tonight. And, of course, the main man, Mike Graham, back with Morning Glory and his bumper stickers. Bumper stickers are going out. Unbelievable. We're having mobility scooter stickers here as I approach my 60th. 0344 499 1000. We're heading to Cambridge. Stephen, you're on Talk Drive. A very good evening, my friend. How are you?
Hello, mate. Yeah, I'm all right.
Good. What would you like to say?
Well, like I said to the lady on the phone.
Yeah, but I wouldn't know what that was, so you'd have to say it to me.
Why isn't our budget or our defence budget set in stone so that no political party can alter it when they get in power?
It's really interesting, isn't it, that we were sorry, I'm going to sound... I mean to sound wrong, but we're an island, and we had to defend ourselves on numerous occasions. And interestingly, I had Sir Gerald Howarth on, former Defence Minister, earlier, and he was saying, you know...
Yeah, I was watching.
You shouldn't be complimenting Trump, he's a disgrace. And I've said warts and all Donald Trump, there's not everything I like about him, but it strikes me as particularly weird that Orange Man Baby in 5 weeks has managed to get the entirety of Europe, certainly this country, to get its head out of its backside and go, oh, maybe we should defend ourselves. I just think it was too easy a cut. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's one of those things that we should maybe should be laid out in stone because that way, right? That way we're never going to be at the mercy of a party who think, but let me just tell you this, the Tories started this. Oh, let's just cut defence because good old America will wipe us. No, they won't anymore. And I honestly, I don't have to like Donald Trump, but if I was him, I wouldn't have done the Zelensky thing. I'd be doing exactly the same. NATO can put its finger out. You pay for yourselves. I've got things to pay for myself.
Well, exactly. But my point is, it should be as a matter of natural interest or national interest. We should have a budget set that not one political party can interfere with without going before the whole of Parliament and the whole of the nation and saying no, we won't drop beyond that point.
Completely agree with you. Good to have you on. Thank you, Stephen in Cambridge. Jez says, Sean in Norwich, the new European foreign policy is terrifying. It's pretty blatant to me. They want war, but have no intention of sending anyone but the very public they offend. What on earth can be done about it? No idea. Lee says, if we have all this extra electricity, why are energy bills so bleeding high? Have I missed the point? Oh, well, that's because when it blows too much, I'm trying to explain this, there's too much electricity and we've nowhere to put it, so we let it go. Do we let it go, or do we... I've no idea what we do with it, Lee. Completely confused. Hello to Ernie, the fastest milk cart. I don't even know what's wrong with me today. The reason the wind farms are being turned off, costing billions a year, is because the grid has no room, because no one's using electricity because it's too expensive. Yay! Ernie, I love you. David's in the Cotswolds, posh there. Great show. Quick question. Is anyone running this country? Veterans on the streets, no doctor's appointments, freezing pensioners, angry farmers, the brink of a European war, and we've got bloody windmills costing us billions. I think that pretty well sums up the mess we're in. Let's go to Northampton. Tracy, you're on Talk Drive. A very good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, darling. Well, do you know what? You summed it just up there. I think we're heading for World War III. I think Starmer is selling Britain up the river. He don't care about us.
No.
He just cares about other people's countries, Germany, France, all that. What about us, right? And another thing as well, I've got to say, these vigilante groups that are going about taking law into their own hands, okay, I agree with it. I'd be the first one to stand on that shore and push all the boats back, because if Labour is not listening to what we, the British people, want, we want a wall built or something to stop them coming in, then let's do it ourselves.
I can't... Listen, I'll allow anybody to be on this. I can't condone that, but I can't... Nobody should take the law into their own hands, but I will say this, and I will say it in your defence and other people's defence, Trace. Lo and behold, at some point, British politicians are going to have to start listening, because the British people, the power of the British people, I'm not trying to build anything up here, is becoming... The will of the British people is getting stronger and stronger. Tracy in Northampton, thank you. The quickest call ever. Bruce in Glasgow, you've only literally got 30 seconds. What do you want, my friend?
Jeremy, quick call. We've got to stop these people in the channel. We have 40 coastal boats working in pairs. That's 10 on, 10 off. We intercept every boat that comes and we turn them round. We give them food, we give them fuel, we give them water. So they have two choices. They can either motor back to France or they can float about in the channel. But they will not set foot on the south coast of England. For God's sake, Starmer, stop them in the channel.
Listen, many people have said turn the boats around. What I find really ironic about all these people who jump up and down, and I'll say this to you, Bruce, because I know you'll get it, is, you know, when people say to me, oh, that's not fair. I mean, I keep coming back to it, and I've been slated for 3 years. I am more than happy to give to give a home to people escaping a war-torn country with their wife and kids, fleeing for their lives. I repeat, for the 4,730th time, France is not a war-torn country, and if you're going to arrive in this country without your wife and kids, having gone through about 4 countries before you got here, that tells me one thing and one thing only, which is this country is an absolute joy to these people because we're so soft, we wipe their backsides to the detriment of people in this country. That's what I'd say, Bruce. Do you know what I mean?
Jeremy, I agree with you. My loyalty is 100% to the British people. I have no loyalty to people trying to break into this country illegally. Stop them in the channel, or we're going to end up with 500,000 people over the next 4 years.
Bruce in Glasgow, thank you very much indeed. Kevin's not going to make it, they say. Now he has made it. I'm confused. Hello.
Of course I was going to make it. I wouldn't.
Here's a shock. Latest YouGov poll, 7% of Brits blame President Zelensky for the row in the Oval Office, while 67% blame Trump. I don't give a toss who's to blame. The fact is he's managed to galvanise Europe to arm ourselves. It's taken him 5 weeks, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Yes, why are all the European leaders, world leaders and all the great and the good concentrating on Trump and Vance, bad manners, bullying,